Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is November 26, 2017. I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everybody.
It's just us two this week. Kind of a quiet week as news goes. You know, I can't really say anything significant. Too much happened that sticks out.
There haven't really been any major stories, just a bunch of smaller ones, I would say.
Interesting week, but this is the week of Thanksgiving, so even though that was Thursday, I want to say Happy Thanksgiving. And we're going to start it off with Trump wishing the nation Happy Thanksgiving.
That's right. He issued his official Thanksgiving proclamation, his very first that he's sent as president. We're not going to read the entire thing. It's kind of long, but the same thing that every single president does. And he pardoned those 2 turkeys as well.
Yes. That was kind of the comedic element of it. He pardoned 2 white turkeys.
Yeah, ain't that true? Did you see the picture of those 2 turkeys that were inside a hotel room?
No.
So they were they were actually like both sitting on a bed in a hotel room. It looks so out of place. But anyways, Trump pardoned the turkey, as all presidents do. Trump pardoned 2 turkeys this year. One of them was named Drumstick. I'm trying to figure out what the other one's name was. I can't actually remember it.
That's so bad they name a turkey that.
Hey, my mom names turkeys whenever she cooks them. She names them all Tom for some reason. I don't know. Huh. Tom the turkey, whatever. Anyways, so it was a good Thanksgiving. The Trump family looked very, very good. They looked all nice. Barron, oh my gosh, have you seen how tall Barron has grown?
No, I haven't.
If you remember back on election night, when he's standing up there with his father and he's giving the acceptance speech,
yeah,
Barron's looks like a short kid. He's now as tall as his mother is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and you can.
He's only like 11 though.
Yeah, he is extremely tall. If you look at pictures of the inauguration, when Trump's up there giving the oath of office, Barron's standing next to him, and he's still shorter than his mother. He's now as tall as his mother at this point, and she was wearing high heels too. So that kid is growing, but that's kind of getting off topic from talking about just Thanksgiving. But I had a good Thanksgiving personally. I got to see my family. I know you did as well.
That's good, yeah. Thanksgiving.
But other than that, yeah, slow news week. Thanksgiving was really the only major part of it in terms of big news that happened.
Yeah.
So
let's get into the economy then. What we have down there.
This is the fastest we've ever got into economics.
Yeah, we've never done it in
Sometimes
it's like
40 minutes, less than 3. So the first things first, Goldman Sachs, as much as I don't like Goldman Sachs for some of the things they do and some of the people they buy off, even they were admitting that 2017 had an extremely good economy, and their forecast showed that 2018 is going to be even better. In fact, they said that 2017 is shaping up to be the first year of the expansion in which growth surprises to the upside. Goldman analyst Charlie Himmelberg says. He says, we expect 2018 to deliver more of the same. So there you go. One of Wall Street's biggest banks out there, Goldman Sachs, is even then themselves saying, yeah, 2018 is going to have a fantastically good economy. And we've talked about that here on the show, that all
projections are showing
are showing things to be good. Hardly anything is showing anything to be negative. The only thing I would say is if Congress does screw up and not get tax reform, that probably will hurt the stock markets at least a little bit. But
I don't think it would be the end of the world either.
No, it wouldn't, because even at this point, every single time you see someone come out and say they're not going to support it, or Congress does something dumb and it makes it seem like they're not going to get it passed, the market does go down, but it's not like it collapses. I mean, the market itself is seeing, they've even got the numbers here in the article that I'm reading from. We've talked about how much this stuff is up. The S&P is up 14% in 2017. Okay, so let's say you screw up tax reform and it drops by 3%. That's an 11% rise in a year. add on the final 2 months of 2016 since election day, you're looking at probably still like another 13% rise. 13% rise in a year, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
The average rise is only like 8 to 9%.
So very solid stuff there. And Goldman Sachs expects it to continue.
And I expect it to continue as well. Speaking of the tax bill, however, earlier this week, the Senate actually released their version of the tax bill. And a lot of people are complaining that they just released it so fast. I've heard rumors that they're actually going to have a vote later this week, even.
I've seen it. I've seen since it's been released, they said they're going to get the vote within the next 2. So
yeah,
soon.
Within the next 2 weeks. So I mean, even I have to admit, I think that's really rushing it. But if you look at the deadline that they said they want to get this thing done, signed into law by Christmas. They
got 4 weeks.
They do got 4 weeks. I mean, yeah, today's the 26th. We're recording now, so less than a month at this point. The Senate bill is 515 pages long, so that seems kind of long, but compared to some things that they release, it's maybe not the worst, maybe not the best. But either way, look at it in comparison to Obamacare. When that thing got released, that was like months before they even voted on it, even though no Republicans voted for it. It was like 6 months actually. Like this thing, they're releasing it, and then within a couple of weeks, they're going to vote on it, and then if it somehow passes, they're going to go to reconciliation, which, who knows how long that'll take, and who knows whether or not that thing will get done. Because think about this. If the Senate votes yes, it has to go to reconciliation.
Because the House has already voted yes on their bill.
Exactly. And then they got to re-vote on this stuff, the finalized version, both chambers. So you'd have to have not only a yes vote here, you'd have to wait however long it takes to reconcile it, then have 2 more votes, then have it signed into law, all within the next 4 weeks. It's going to be very very difficult. Now, it's possible they might actually get it done, not going to lie. But I'm still, I tended to be the one who was always saying, like, I'm leaning towards, I think, something along tax reform will get done. And I still do lean towards, I think something will get done. And the reason I say that is because, we've talked about how we believe some Republicans might not support it and some will. I know they've talked about, I think it was
Ron Johnson from Wisconsin said that he will not vote yes on this bill in regards to how it affects small businesses.
Right. But if you remember during the Obamacare repeal, Alaska Senator Murkowski, she voted against that for a lot of like women's issue and stuff. So people were thinking, is she going to break with the Republicans again? Well,
yeah, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins out there in Maine, they have been the 2 women that have caused the most trouble for us trying to pass anything. They both voted no on the health care bill. They both were citing cuts to Planned Parenthood. And Murkowski has been someone we've had to watch real closely as well because she, has a very good likelihood. Because, like, her and Susan Collins, they're in, like, the same vein as John McCain. Like, they look up to him. So, yeah, it's been questionable. Versions. It's been questionable if she's going to vote yes on this, but it looks like there's a better chance now.
It looks like there's a better chance she will because she wrote an op-ed not an op-ed. Yeah, she wrote an op-ed in Politico, actually, saying that she supports how the Senate version of the bill does repeal the Obamacare individual mandate, which we talked a lot about in the show last week, how the Senate bill included that. And the fact that she went out of her way to write an entire op-ed signaling her support for that portion of it tends to think people are saying that, yeah, that means she's probably going to support whatever the Senate does pass because of that. Like, why else would you write an op-ed about one tiny little portion of a bill?
It'd be strange to write positive things about it, but then vote no when it comes time to vote.
Yeah, so...
I mean, stranger things have happened, but we'll see.
Yeah, precisely. So the fact that she wrote that, I tend to think that means, she probably will vote for the final bill, which if that's the case, then that's one less person we'd have to worry about here. I'm not going to place her in the definite yes, but I'm going to place her in the lean yes if I had my own opinion chart that I could place everybody in.
I think, just thinking off the top of my head about the other people that we have to worry about, we need to worry about Jeff Flake if he'll vote yes. We need to worry about Bob Corker if he'll vote yes. Obviously, John McCain we need to worry about.
Well, Bob Corker, he did release a statement saying that his hatred of Trump is not going to get in his way of voting against tax reform.
So he's down.
He's probably in the lean yes portion.
Yeah, he's still obviously a dangerous guy to the stuff we want to get done. But, yeah, he'll probably be there. Murkowski and Collins, they're always people that are trouble. And as we've said before, Ron Johnson has said that he will be voting no. So we can only afford one more person of the people that I have just, mentioned that can vote no. And any more than that, we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So still definitely not in the clear on this stuff.
And that's like we said, because almost all Democrats are going to vote in one block saying no, unless you can maybe get Manchin from West Virginia or Donnelly from Indiana to maybe switch over. I mean,
they've been trying. I know, like Heidi Heitkamp has talked about, there actually does need to be tax reform, but I just don't see it at this point. I haven't seen anything recently to suggest that these people are going to flip vote.
Yeah, neither have I. The closest I've seen is I think it was Manchin released a statement last week, or maybe it was the week before, talking about he was in favor of working with the Republicans to get something done, which compared to the way most Democrats are talking nowadays about just like, screw what they have to say, don't listen to them, at least he's out there saying, yeah, I'm willing to work with people. So again, that's not saying he's going to vote yes. I have him up in the toss-up column personally. I don't have him in a lean yes or lean no. So that's how that is. If by any chance you do get a single Democrat to flip over, that does buy you one extra no vote from a Republican, but that's still a very, very unlikely chance that will happen.
Yeah.
So again, we can't lose any votes, or at least any more than we already have. If we lose one, because if it goes 50-50, Pence is the tiebreaker. Congratulations, you passed some sort of tax reform. You still got to repass it during reconciliation, and that's a whole other business. And like I said, you got to get this all done in the next 4 weeks. Very, very difficult.
Because at the moment, so we passed a bill for tax reform out of the House, and we have another bill in the Senate, but they're very different looking bills.
Yes.
They need to somehow, if the Senate votes yes on their bill, Frankenstein this monster in some sort of way that you can get this voted on between both parts of Congress, and then you can finally send this to President Trump and he can sign it. So it's a lot to ask of them to do in the next 4 weeks before their holiday recess comes up.
I can tell you one thing. At this point, I feel like Trump will sign anything they put on his desk.
Yes.
Whether or not that's a good thing is yet to be seen. He needs a win. He wants a win. He wants Congress to actually do something for once. And even if whatever they end up doing within reconciliation doesn't actually get done what he wanted to get done in terms of tax reform, I'm sure he'll still sign it, because as we've been saying, if 2018 rolls around and we can get some of our guys to replace some of the rhinos in Congress or the establishment Republicans, and then maybe in like summer of 2019 get some more stuff done from tax reform that you didn't get done this time around, that would probably be something that's more realistic a chance, especially if you can't get anything done this time, which is a possibility, especially if you get one or two more Republicans voting no on that thing. So other than that, that's really all I have to say about tax reform this week.
Let's move on to the stories that we have for science this week then.
All right, so the first story we have is Volvo, the car company, said that they are going to be supplying Uber with 24,000 self-driving SUVs in order to create their own taxi fleet. So I guess that means that whenever you click your little Uber button to request a car, you won't even have a driver. You'll have a self-driving car. So for all those people like the New York City guy that was an Uber driver, the Uzbeki who ran over those 7 people, guys like him, where Uber is his only job, you're going to be out of a job. This is talking about the automation. A lot of people use Uber just as like extra income. If they suddenly switch over to self-driving cars, you're out of a job, buddy. So
it is interesting because so I was reading some articles this week over automation, especially in regards to how colleges are handling automation. Because it's not going to be just low-wage jobs that are being automized. A lot of high-end degree jobs are going to be automized as well. I mean, what is it? The predictions are like half of all current jobs will be automized within the next 2 or 3 decades.
That's what I've heard.
Generally, that's what most people are saying that automation is going to be like in the future. So it's going to affect not only, the rideshare economy, it's going to, affect almost everyone. I mean, everyone's going to know someone that has been put out by automation. How do we put people still back to work in the future? I just have no idea. And, it's interesting. I don't think colleges are even teaching any sort of regards that prepares us for this at all.
No, they're not.
So people are really going to be in for a huge wake-up call because they're already working on this stuff pretty furiously. I mean, we talked about, what was it, 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas, they tried a self-driving car out there on the Strip.
And it crashed in 2 hours.
It crashed in 2 hours. Okay, so that's a failure in a sense. But it shows that they're making a lot of progress, really, if they're out there testing this kind of stuff already.
On live streets.
Yeah,
with real people.
On live streets. Who's to say in a year or 2 or 3 they don't have the stuff pat down?
And this plan itself, Uber said that they could be ready for the road as early as 2019.
Yeah.
That's, I want to say 2 years, but that's really talking about just over a year from now. A year and like a month at the earliest, 2 years at the latest. And they said that what they plan on doing is having at least 10,000 of the 24,000 on the road before 2021. So within 2019 to 2021, that 2-year period, within the next 2 years, starting, have 10,000 driverless Ubers out there.
And from the viewpoint of Uber, this makes a lot of sense, okay? They don't have to pay the self-driving car any wage. All of the profits get to go to Uber. It's way more efficient. Mm-hmm. They don't need to take a break. They don't need to go out for lunch. They don't have to sleep. The cars get to stay there at all times. And if you don't have to pay, wage to the driver, you can actually have cheaper prices on these Ubers going around.
Plus, I mean, at this point, if you do an Uber drive, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how much it's going to cost depending on, where you're at, what time of day, how far you're going, all that sort of stuff.
It depends on the city, too.
But for the most part, if you're just doing like a regular trip, the only thing Uber's going to have to pay for, I'm sure that when it talks about them getting these cars from Volvo, I'm sure it's not going to be, we're going to physically buy these cars from you. It's probably going to be some sort of like agreement to like lease a lot of cars or something along that lines. For the most part, besides paying for that, just pay for gas and then pay for regular upkeep of the vehicles, which if you add up that cost is still probably less than whatever you'd end up paying your drivers.
Yeah. Let's let this ambulance go by.
Yeah. Hopefully you didn't hear that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting predicament, and we're just not prepared for where this is going. But I don't think we have to be entirely afraid of automation. You can look at it from the negative, like a lot of people will lose their jobs and people will have to reorient themselves in the economy to, have a future. But also there's just going to be benefits that we can't see at the moment from having automation. And, like I said just with the Uber thing, they're going to be able to lower the prices on these things if they don't have to give any sort of wage to, a driver at all. So, in a lot of places, it doesn't make sense to even own a car if the prices on these things are just so incredibly low.
I mean, already, look at cities like New York City. I mean, Uber is extremely popular in New York City. Yeah. But hardly anyone there actually owns a car. Why would they? Especially if you live in Manhattan. You just take the subway everywhere. But if you look at somewhere like California or Los Angeles area, everybody owns a car, everybody has a house. So what you really would look at is probably places like New York where this would become more popular, simply because of, that stuff that you're looking at. But you also have to keep in mind one thing. Volvo said that they plan on releasing their own version of fully autonomous cars in 2021 as well. So what I'm thinking this is this is a test run for Volvo. Yeah. Saying, hey, those driverless cars you've been driving around on that are Ubers? You can get one of those for yourself. So, that sort of thing. Also, Uber...
Which, is coming. It's going to happen.
Yeah, that's going to happen. And
it's going to be very soon.
Volvo is Volvo cars are extremely good. They're some of the safest on the market. They're very high-end. They're good, which is probably the reason why Uber's partnering with them to do this. But what they did say is Uber is actually looking at having its own IPO in 2019 as well. So, releasing a fleet of driverless cars 6 months before your initial public offering the company's already valued at around $70 billion. That could double theoretically, depending on how things go. So it looks like as a company, Uber is getting very, very serious about what they're trying to do at this point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, other than that, in terms of driverless cars and stuff like that, I don't know. But what they did say is Volvo is going to supply the advanced XC90 SUVs, which are the ones that they're going to be giving out to Uber within the next 2 years. It says the current version, which they've shown at different like high-end car shows and stuff, like test models, but not like the final model. They said that those have limited autonomous driving features, so you still can drive it in case you need to. It's not going to be 100% fully automated, which I think going forward, at least in this transition period, I could say, when people are going from like regular you drive the car yourself to the car drives itself, you do need to have cars that can do both before you get to one final thing. I definitely think that's the way to go. They said the car has a starting listing price, $47,000. Which for a car like that and a driverless car that's not a lot. That's from a fancy car company that's got good safety features, that's actually pretty cheap, I'd say. Like I'd expect that to be like $80,000, $90,000. With
self-driving features, you'd expect a lot more.
Yeah. So other than that, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. Who knows if we'll end up riding one? I'm sure at some point we'll end up riding in some sort of driverless car in our lifetime, but
at some point.
Theoretically, within the next 2 years, we could get an Uber that's driving us around. So,
I think it's going to be interesting because, I like driving my car.
Yeah,
I have no problem having to drive it myself. But I think in the future, there's going to be people that, grow up without ever having to drive a car, which is crazy insane. I mean, maybe there are going to be requirements in the future, like if you have a self-driving car, you still need a driver's license.
I would think that would probably be something like that.
Maybe not. I mean, it's all speculation. But
I mean, in the U.S. at least, you can own a car without having a driver's license. You just can't drive it on public roads. You can drive it on private roads and stuff. You know who I think this really negatively affects? Saudi Arabian women. Because they just got permission to drive. And if you start releasing all the the driverless cars, them drive for maybe 5-10 years, and then all of a sudden they don't have to drive anymore.
Well, actually, in Saudi Arabia, they're having delayed implementation. They're not going to allow women to fully drive till next year, so even less time for them.
I know, maybe 9 years. Think about that. You go your entire life, 40, 50 years. Hey, you can drive now. You drive for 5 years, and all of a sudden...
And then cars start driving themselves.
Exactly. So all I got to say is bad timing sucks for them. But moving on to the next story. Speaking of things that you can do in a driverless car that you can't do in a regular car is drink.
Yes.
Or at least I would assume you probably would be allowed to.
I would hope you're not.
Me too. But speaking of drinking, Budweiser says that they are wanting to brew on Mars. That was actually a statement they released earlier this year. It was a lot of people thought it was just a joke because they said something along the lines of they wanted to be the first beer company to brew beer on Mars, and everyone's like, okay, that just sounds like something a company would say, blah 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 type statement, right? Anyways, they said they're actually going forward with it. They said later this year, or actually probably next year at this point, they said they're going to be taking their barley seeds that they brew with, and they're going to be sending them up to the International Space Station in order to conduct research in zero-gravity environments, which has not been done before using those type of seeds. They're going to keep them up there for, I believe it's a couple of months or however long it takes for them to do it, and then ship them back down to the surface, I guess you could say, in order to conduct experiments to see how it went. So Budweiser's actually moving forward with that. Everyone thought it was just kind of like a off-the-cuff joke statement or just saying hey, look how cool we are. No, they're serious about, we're going to freaking brew on Mars and we're going to start testing it on the International Space Station.
It's so out of left wing. I don't know why you'd want to brew on a different planet, but
because you can.
I guess because they can.
Hey, if you start putting up a Mars colony and people realize, hey, there's no beer here, they're going to demand there's beer there, and they're either going to bring it with them, which I don't think is such a good idea, or they're going to have to brew it themselves.
Yeah.
And you might as well get a company that knows what it's doing, like Budweiser, to do it for you. So, hey.
It's interesting that this is even in the ether, though. I don't know. It's something else.
Yeah, they said that the next SpaceX cargo supply mission, which is set to leave for the International Space Station December 4th, that's when the seeds are going to be on. So we're talking like by next week, the seeds will be on the International Space Station to begin their like growth stage or testing or whatever they're doing up there. So that's literally how quickly we're talking about it. Like within the next probably 6 months, you could learn how to, because you have to learn how to do stuff all over again. Different environments, all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Within the next 6 months, they could have a basic idea of what they're doing to the point where you could have an entire wing of the International Space Station just brewing beer for people. Now, I know obviously that's not going to happen, but theoretically it's possible. So, you know, someone's going to have to take the initiative and do it, and I'm glad at least someone is at this point. And it's looking like it's going to go really, really fast. So,
interesting stuff. Very strange, but interesting.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some immigration news.
Open the door! Immigration!
La migra, vamos, niños!
This week in immigration.
So the first story out of immigration hits very close to home because it happened here in Texas, and that is a Border Patrol agent was killed out near Big Bend. This happened last Sunday. It was Border Patrol agent Rogelio Martinez. Him and his partner were attacked by allegedly illegal aliens that crossed the border. Now, what I've heard from different people talking about it is what these guys did is they jumped over the barrier, into the United States, which, alerted the Border Patrol that they're trespassing, and then they just waited until these guys came, and then they attacked them. And this Rogelio Martinez, his head was smashing against the rocks, and his partner, whose name is not being revealed for his safety's sake, also suffered some pretty serious injuries.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. And Texas Governor Abbott has offered $20,000 reward for any information leading to the guys who actually killed him and injured the other guys. So, we're serious about trying to hunt these two guys down and figure out who actually did it to them.
Yeah, which now on the Border Patrol's website, they have a list of the agents that have been attacked, in the line of duty since 2003. That list now goes to 38 agents have been killed since 2003.
Wow.
Patrolling the border. So really, really bad stuff, and it goes to show why we need a wall. We need better security on the border for our, general border security, but for the safety of our agents that we have, out there patrolling to begin with. Really bad stuff happening out there.
Because, if you actually had a wall instead of just whatever the barrier is that currently is there, which is pretty much a glorified fence.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to jump over that thing.
I think it was only 5 feet high, they said.
Yeah, 5, even 7 feet tall at some points. You can climb that. I can climb that.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Whereas, if you have a 30-foot wall, people ain't getting over that thing.
Yeah. So, this isn't a situation that we want to be dealing with, and pretending that there's no problem doesn't make this go away. The liberals just want to pretend there's no problem with keeping the border how it is. But Border Patrol agents die because we keep it the way it is. Why should we, continue to do nothing about this? That's negligent, and that negligence causes death. But want to move on to the next thing?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So, also pertaining to Texas, happening there on the border, not good stuff either. Border Patrol agents are saying that catch and release is being re-implemented along the border. I'll just read a little bit from the Washington Times piece on this. The Trump administration reinstated a de facto catch and release policy for illegal immigrants nabbed crossing the border in Texas, with Border Patrol agents being told Wednesday not to even bother turning them over for speedy deportation because there is no bed space, top agents said. The problem, said Brandon Judd, an agent and president of the National Border Patrol Council, is that illegal immigration has surged once again after dipping during the early months of President Trump's tenure. That has left the deportation agency, ICE, struggling to find beds to hold the illegal immigrants. As a result, Border Patrol agents who bring apprehended people to ICE are turned away. He said ICE's San Antonio office, which handles most of the traffic for the Texas border, said it would have to refuse to take any family units from the Border Patrol tries to turn over, and will soon reject even non-family migrants.
So the problem really is the fact that they've got no room to store these people.
Yeah. Because you need to hold these people somewhere until you can get them processed for deportation.
Which, that makes perfect sense to me. Wasn't Texas trying to build that new deportation center?
We had one approved. I don't know when. We talked about it months and months ago. I forgot what the projections were for the completion of that is. But, yeah, not good stuff happening out in the border. Because, the thing with catch and releases is, once the word, heads south that we're doing this again, catching people and just letting them go, it's going to encourage more people to come. And as we've seen in the recent months, illegal immigration is surging again. Mm-hmm. And as this continues, it's only going to go up.
It's still down from the Obama years, but it is surging.
Yes.
It is surging.
They said that last month they caught 26,000 illegal aliens trying to cross the border.
In 1 month?
Into Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, all I got to say is, a lot of that problem also comes to the fact that, you have to store those people there until an immigration judge can, rule on the case. That doesn't sound like those cases are going very fast, because I assume, although we are arresting more people for deportation, it seems like, along the same time, you'd have a more efficient system of going through this court process to actually deport the people that you want to have deported. But if it's taking too long to do that, and the fact that you have other people that are essentially being released because you can't get them to stay there, or you can't keep them there for long enough to hear a court case to have them deported, that sounds to me like the real problem here is the fact that, A, you don't have enough space, you need to find somewhere else to do it, or build a new place ASAP, or B, get that speedy deportation process to be even speedier, because it doesn't seem like it's, fast enough right now.
Or I'm sorry, the 26,000 illegal aliens is not just Texas, it's the border in general.
Okay, yeah,
that seemed like it was really high. That'd be insanely high. But if you look at where we were back in April they only caught 11,100. So there has been, a demonstrable surge in these people coming once again. And if we don't do anything about it, the problem's not going away. We can't just wave magic wands.
Yeah, even down here it says that Tyler Holton, acting press secretary at DHS, suggested the problem was a lack of support from the courts for Mr. Trump's mission. So you're right there. Even the acting press secretary of DHS agreed with what I just said. It's the fact that the courts are taking so long to do these things. That's why you're not able to do it. So what you really need to do is get more people on the courts, or, get different people on the courts in order to get these things done faster.
Yeah.
Also, I guess another problem is the fact that, like they said, San Antonio pretty much covers all the stuff that happens in Texas. So even if you're someone who's arrested in, El Paso, you got to go to the deportation judge in San Antonio in order to, have that case heard. I don't know why we got to even have these people hear cases. If you're an illegal immigrant who's literally caught crossing the border, you should just literally get thrown in the back of a van
and then
taken back over the border.
You don't need a court case. You can just go back.
It's one thing to get a court case for people that have been here for 10 years that are arrested for doing something. It's another thing for people that are literally caught crossing the border right then and there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Granted, I think they both should be deported ASAP, but everyone I think can understand there is a difference between the two.
And when we do stuff like catch or release, these people just come back, okay? You look at the numbers for deportations under Barack Obama. Barack Obama actually had a lot.
Yeah.
His is around 3 million, but most of that is catch and release. So a lot of the guys Barack Obama, caught and deported, they deported the same guy again later, and that's why his number is so high. So I don't want Donald Trump's deportation number to be artificially high because we've been just sending guys back and deporting them multiple times over. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to have solid action on illegal immigration in this country. So something needs to happen soon.
And I feel like something will, especially as, if it really tends to increase, if that number that's spiking continues to rise, they're going to deal with that problem, and it's going to become so big that the administration is going to look at it and be like, okay, yeah, this is not helping us accomplish our goals right now. So.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next story. This happened on Monday. The Trump administration said that they're ending temporary residency permit programs for around 60,000 Haitians that are living and working in the United States since the 2010 earthquake that hit the Caribbean nation. So they're allowed to have extend their time in the United States by one more period until July 2019, and after that, all of them have to return to Haiti because conditions have improved since 2010.
Yeah, I mean, what does it say right here? Since the 2010 earthquake, the number of displaced people in Haiti has decreased by 97%. So, I mean, Haiti's already one of the poorest countries in the world. That's not a reason to bring them here. In fact, that's a reason to not bring them here. I don't want Haitians here. Haitians are kind of crazy people if you ever actually meet them.
Yeah, so, I think this is good. I mean, we have all these different programs for keeping thousands upon thousands of displaced people temporarily here, but they've been here so long, they get in their heads that they get to stay here. And, this is always going to be a temporary thing. So I don't think, it's good enough reason that, you don't get to go back because it's a poor place. It was a poor place to begin with when they left. I mean, that's not much of an excuse.
And, we're seeing the same thing with Puerto Rico right now. I mean, I get, Fox News and CNN notifications on my phone using just the basic, Apple News app thing. And whenever they publish, big stories, it seems like every single day CNN is publishing something about how bad the situation is in Puerto Rico. And they're doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
They're trying to make you feel bad and want to, bring these people here and offer more support. They're like, half of Puerto Rico still doesn't have power. And I'm like, half of Puerto Rico didn't even have power before the hurricane hit. Yeah. You're just using this as an excuse to be like, hey, look how bad things are there. Bring these people here so they can vote Democrat. No, in fact, in terms of Puerto Rico, and I understand we're talking about Haiti here, the situation kind of still stands. They say, look how bad their situation is. Let's bring them all here, or let's send them a bunch of money, which isn't going to help anything. It's just going to be a waste. I would say, 5 years ago, I probably would have been the person that was like, yeah, let's send them money. I wasn't ever the person that was like, let's bring them here. But I was the person like, yeah, let's, use our resources to help them. No, I'm saying, you know what? Don't. If these people aren't going to be able to handle any help that you send them, why even send it? Because it's not going to help.
And this is part of, a recent trend that Donald Trump has been embarking upon, because he recently said that we're going to be suspending the temporary stay for the Hondurans and El Salvadorians.
It's 80,000 of them.
Yeah, who have been given temporary stay in the United States since, what hurricane was it? It was back in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So, a lot of those people are going back, and they're complaining because, we set up our lives here, and we had kids here, but, why were you setting down roots when you were told this is temporary?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally called temporary protection status. It's not permanent protection status. It's, you're only going to stay here for a set amount of time, then you got to go back.
The excuse is, but they don't want to go back because the places where they're from is poor. But there's a lot of poor places in the world. It doesn't mean we can't take all of the people from those places. It doesn't work that way. There's billions of people in the world, and the standard of living in the United States is higher than billions of people in the world. There's not enough space to take all the billions of people in the world that would want to come here.
Or the resources necessary to do it.
Yeah.
To sustain those people forever.
Have you seen that, that gumball demonstration with
I was actually thinking about that now. But the
I recently rewatched that.
The problem with that video is that the guy is relying on a false premise to begin. Because he's saying that the reason we take in immigrants is to, make them richer or something like that. Whereas that's not the reason why we take them in. Or, it's to make or to try to like alleviate the number of poor people in the world or something like that.
Well, no, he was attacking the idea that immigration to the United States can be used to combat world poverty.
Right.
But the rate of replacement, like currently in the United States, we take in 1 million legal immigrants a year from all over the world. But at the rate of replacement, even if we started taking in 5 million people a year, which would be insane, there'd be like no logistical way we could take in that many.
There's barely a logistical way for us to take in 1 million.
Yeah. We wouldn't put it in a dent of the third world, replacement population. They replace themselves a million times over than the one that we take in. And we just, endlessly degrade ourselves. We don't put a dent in the world's poverty by letting people come here. So why should we pretend that that's a thing? But liberals want to pretend that. They think that's a legitimate thing.
And all you're doing is wasting our time, money, and future by trying, by even trying at this point. So I would say give up. It's not worth it. Just stop doing it. That's my viewpoint. So
yeah, let's actually, implement some standards and things. Meritocracy.
Let's not have judges block our standards either, which is the next story we got.
Yeah. So the next story that we have this happened in California.
Of course it happened in California.
Of course.
Oh, look, it's the Ninth Circuit. Of course.
It's the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ordered that Trump's order that would defund sanctuary cities, he says it's unconstitutional. That we have to give money. Yeah, a federal judge in California blocked Trump's executive order to cut funding from sanctuary cities that don't cooperate with U.S. immigration officials. According to the judge, Trump can't set new conditions on spending approved by Congress.
I actually understand where he's coming from there in terms of Trump can't set new conditions on spending approved by Congress. That actually does make sense. But I disagree with the fact that, because I do want to get rid of sanctuary cities. What you can do, however, which would be constitutional, is appeal this under the guise of Congress allows, Congress says you can spend X amount of money on whatever you want. It doesn't say you have to spend X amount of money on whatever you want, especially in not the mandatory spending, but the what's the other spending word? I think it starts with a D. You know what I'm looking for, right?
What?
The other, there's mandatory spending you have to do.
Discretionary?
And there you go, discretionary spending. Just because you've allocated money for something, I don't think by law you have to spend it, even though government does tend to go ahead and just spend it if it's allocated. That argument probably would make it through the court system to make Trump's side win that court case, especially if you got it to the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court, as liberal as the justices are, they do tend to be more realistic in terms of what the Constitution does say regarding issues like this.
Yeah.
Whereas the Ninth Circuit's just we're complete shit libs. We're going to say whatever we want.
Now, in an ideal world, we can just get Congress to do this. Because, the idea of withholding funding from states that don't want to cooperate has been done before. Look back at the 1984 National Minimum Drinking Age Act. So what that did is if you didn't have a minimum legal age of drinking in your state of 21, 10% of your federal highway funding was withheld from you, which, I'm from Wisconsin. We're the last state to change it from 18 to 21. They withheld state funding to our state until we did that. In an ideal world, we could just get Congress to pass a similar thing that says, if your cities are up in accordance with cooperating with immigration officials, we're withholding X percentage of funding for your police. But for some odd reason, we don't have people that want to do that. They feel that they're entitled to this money even though they don't want to cooperate with the law.
And they're all in the Ninth Circuit, too. The exact same judge was the one who previously put a stop on Trump stuff as well.
Yeah.
That shows you that there is a problem with the court system when the same freaking judge is blocking everything the president's trying to do.
And it's very self-serving in a sense because, what was it, a month or two ago, California declared itself a sanctuary state.
Yeah.
So a court in California gets to protect, California from losing any money.
And they have the say over every other 49 states in the country.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand the complaint that they're making. I do think they actually have, like, a constitutional grounds.
Yeah.
But I just wish this wasn't the case. I wish we could just make these people cooperate. But we don't have a Congress that fights on our behalf as a nation for our own national sovereignty, because they just want to protect these illegal aliens for some odd reason, even though they're not citizens. It's frustrating.
And as much as the left wants to protect them, at least the Department of Justice is doing something about a certain different type of illegal immigrants, and those are immigrants who have been convicted of child sex abuses. The Department of Justice actually filed a lawsuit to revoke the U.S. citizenship of 5 immigrants who pleaded guilty to sexually abusing minors in incidents determined to have taken place before they became naturalized citizens. So it shows that... the lawsuits were filed in Florida, Illinois, and 2 of them in Texas. And 2 of them in Texas. So we're actually starting to do a process, albeit very, very small, but in terms of saying, hey, if you commit certain types of crimes, not only are we going to, arrest you, you're going to lose your citizenship, which means you can get deported too.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's exactly what needs to happen. They need to get deported. But, let's see, they have a list of the 5 guys here. 3 are from Mexico, 1's from Colombia, and 1's from Nigeria. All of which are above 49 years old.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about, younger people that are recent immigrants. We're talking about people that have lived here for a very, very long time.
We should revoke their citizenship.
Yeah. And, look at this first guy here. Jorge Luis Alvarado, 56, from Mexico, became a citizen in the year 2000, pleaded guilty in 2007 to committing indecency with a child by sexual contact. They said that took place shortly before he started his, not even before it went through, before he even started his naturalization application process. Second one, Alberto Murillo Beleno, 64, from Colombia, became a citizen in 2001. Pleaded guilty to molestation of a minor in 1993 and 1994. Eleazar Corral Venezuela, 49, from Mexico, became a citizen in 2000. The Justice Department said he sexually abused a minor child before he applied for a naturalization process and pleaded guilty to the charge in 2000. Moises Herrera Gonzalez, 55, Mexico, became a citizen in 1999, pleaded guilty in 2002 to sexually assaulting a child in 1996. Emmanuel Alubegna Armaprolet, of Nigeria, 60 years old, became a citizen in 2004, pleaded guilty in 2015 to unlawful sexual contact with a 7-year-old child before he was naturalized. These are people that pled guilty to things that happened before they even became citizens, and yet we still let them become citizens.
And, the left, they always like to say that, our immigration system is so broken because I guess it doesn't give away enough citizenship to people. No, it's broken in the sense that we've given away to, people that shouldn't have it in the first place, okay? Illegal immigration is bad. Legal immigration is also very bad, okay? It's even worse that we actually went through checking these people and, we didn't catch this stuff. And we haven't revoked their citizenship.
We're in the process of going through
We are in the process, so we are, making amends to fix these things. But this isn't something that a serious nation would put up with. And for the longest time, in regards to immigration, we haven't been a serious nation. So it's time that we get serious because these things have consequences. And, it goes back to that original quote with Donald Trump. They're bringing crime, they're rapists. Not a They apostrophe R-E. No, Their. They're rapists. Their rapists are objectively coming, and
yes.
These are examples of them. And it's time for them to go back, because they're not our problems.
And what else? Another group of people that it's time for them to go back is the DACA kids,
yes.
As we've been talking about, quote unquote kids. 4 of them, in fact, blocked the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade route to protest Trump's immigration policies. You got to hear some of the quotes that they have here. So what they said was that what happened was, because you've obviously heard of the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, the biggest parade pretty much of the year. It's always in New York City and stuff. And
it was on TV when I stopped by before I went to my mom's house.
Yeah, exactly. So What they did was they staged a sit-down protest and blocked the parade route before the cops removed them. The cops did not arrest them, however, whereas I think they should have. So listen to some of these quotes here. The first one is by Piyash Ahmed, 26, of New Jersey. It says, "We want permanent protection for undocumented youth and more focus on the fact that all undocumented youth are suffering, whether they're DACA or not." They said they dressed in red t-shirts, sat in the middle of the road on Central Park West at 70th Street. Were quickly shut off or ushered off by police, but they weren't arrested. This is going to piss you off when I read the rest of this here. Barbara Hernandez, a 25-year-old early childhood teacher, came from California to participate. She drove all the way from California to sit in the middle of the street in New York City and block a parade route. Talk about premeditated. She says, quote, "I was scared of being arrested. I was scared of losing my job. But once there, I felt empowered, having them with me and knowing it wasn't just for me. It was for everyone, not just the dreamers, but all 11 million. Yeah.
It's a lie that it's 11 million. It's a lot bigger than that. But just, these people are so goddamn entitled. They're acting like children. They're upholding a goddamn parade for, a national holiday. Okay, talk about not assimilating. These people aren't assimilating if they're trying to uphold the Macy's Day Parade. And it's just, I don't know what we can do with these people. They're not making the case for me wanting them to be here. That's for sure, okay? We always, they like to complain like, oh, the Russians are meddling in our democracy. Foreigners are interfering with our democracy. These are foreign nationals interfering with our democracy. They're advocating for foreigners that aren't even supposed to be here. And they want political action for them. Not for us, for them. They want our political system to work for them. But that's not a subversion of our democracy. No,
of course not. No,
that's tolerance. That's inclusion.
They said they're planning on protesting in Washington in December. Now that doesn't say if it's D.C. or state, so
it's probably D.C.
It's probably D.C. Because that's where everything is. But those same people. So hopefully they get arrested there too and deported. That one chick, she was like, I was scared of being arrested and losing my job. Well, hopefully you do get arrested and hopefully you do lose your job. Therefore, you can get deported back to wherever the hell you came from. Because you don't belong here, woman. Blocking my parade route when I'm trying to watch it on the freaking TV.
It's just, DACA expires pretty soon, in March.
Well, it starts to expire in March.
It starts to expire in March. And, they're fighting over, are we going to get a clean DACA? Can we get the DREAM Act? With the amount of priorities that Congress has on it at the moment, there's not time to work on this
They can't even get tax reform done.
Yeah, if they can't get tax reform done or health care done, what makes you think that these people are going to save you, DACA recipients? They're not. Because everyone has crazy expectations about this. So, there's so many Democrats that are saying that, we either get a clean DACA or nothing. Okay, we're not giving you a clean DACA. Donald Trump has already come out and said that. He's made you a list of the things that we want in return for DACA.
Anything regarding anything.
Yes. But these people would not vote on anything that would give Trump anything in return for DACA. So it's not going to happen.
And not only that, but Senator Dick Durbin from Oregon, he said that he's going to refuse to take, a vacation until a clean DACA bill is passed here. So it's like, well, guess what, dude? You're going to be sitting in your apartment in D.C. for the next 5 to 6 months then.
These people talk with, consequences as though we give a fuck. They're all, remember when they, protested Nancy Pelosi and, all or none,
mm-hmm.
all 11 million. It's just do you realize we want none? Don't even put that as an option. They hold consequences against us we care. I don't care if you're not going on vacation, dude. I don't want a clean DACA. I don't want DACA. It's time for you guys to go back.
And if you notice, they're starting to get the DACA people to protest for the other illegal immigrants in the country. Because what it used to be is like, you'd get like legal immigrants to do it. Because if you're illegal out there, like, guess what? You're now a target. Because like you're saying, hey, I'm illegal, look at me. But you get the DACA people who are technically illegal, but like have at least some sort of protection out there.
Status, yeah.
They're like, well, guess what? We'll have them because they're closer to us than the legal immigrants are. And you notice now they're starting to say, we're fighting for all 11 million. Not, oh, we're fighting for the DACA kids. No, we're fighting for every fucking person who's an illegal immigrant in this country who doesn't deserve to belong here.
Thing is, we don't owe you anything.
Exactly.
You got to stay here.
We owe them one thing, and that's a plane ticket back home.
You got to stay here for years. And congratulations, I bet you enjoyed it. A lot of you still want to burn the American flag, whatever. But, yeah, we don't owe you anything.
Except
what
for
do we
home.
get in return? What do we, the American citizens, get in return if we gave you a clean DACA bill?
$100 billion a year.
But they're never talking about what we get. The American citizens, what do we get? It's about them. And that's why when I talk about DACA, I say it's not about them. It's about us. We need to actually focus on ourselves for once. We can't pretend that every single poor person that comes here wanting something deserves something, because they don't. It's frustrating.
Let's just move on to the next story. Then.
Yes. So the next story is that the feds are planning to do some nationwide operations that are going to be targeting a food service chain.
Good.
Now, they haven't said what food chain that is yet, for obvious reasons. They don't want to divulge this to the people working there. Maybe Pollo Loco, maybe Whataburger. I don't know.
Bell.
Maybe Taco Bell. I don't know. But
Burger King.
Yeah, federal agents are planning to conduct a major worksite enforcement operation at a national food service chain in the coming weeks, according to an internal immigration and customs enforcement document reviewed by the Daily Beast. The current plan is focused on employers who exploit undocumented workers by illegally paying them below the minimum wage. The operation will target locations around the country and will likely result in charges of harboring illegal aliens, according to an ICE official. So this is good. This is really great. We're actually going after them and doing, workplace enforcement. Because if we can get these people afraid to go to their work, that's the reason why they came here.
And not only you get the people afraid to go to their work, if you start pushing charges on the people that hired them for harboring illegal aliens,
you're going to stop doing this.
That's going to put pressure on other people to say, hey, I don't want charges brought against me. I don't think I should hire these people anymore.
Let's say in the hypothetical, Wendy's is the place that they're going after.
Yeah.
And there was a big crackdown on Wendy's all across the country, and we caught 200 illegal aliens working at Wendy's, and Wendy's got fined, and all these different, franchise holders are getting fined, and they're getting charged. If you are a franchise holder of a Burger King that is doing this, you're next. At least you think you're next, so you're not going to do this. You're going to enforce yourself, because you are next. And that's what these people need to get through their heads.
And also, I think precisely on that standpoint, if you're a Burger King guy who already has illegals working for you, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, if they find out I have illegals working for me, I'm going to, I could get fined and arrested or charged with something like this.
You can go to jail for harboring illegal aliens.
What that also puts pressure on them is to fire those people, too.
Yeah.
Or turn them in themselves. And I think that, as much as I'd like to see fines and charges against these people, I think if you're a restaurant manager, employee, whatever, hiring, what I'm talking about. If you turn in illegals that are working for you, I think that you should have no charges brought against you as long as you do that. I think that's fair. Do you think that's fair?
That's fair enough. I mean, it's not a situation we wanted to be in the first place, but if we can do our part to get them out, I don't care, okay?
Are you reading the stat that they give down here from the Migration Policy Institute?
No. You want to read it for us?
They said the food service industry is a particularly ripe target, with the Migration Policy Institute estimating that about 9% of fast food workers in the United States are undocumented.
Yeah.
That's 1 in 10.
1 in 10?
Or, 9%, more like 1 in 11.
Yeah, 1 in 11.
1 in 11 fast food workers is an undocumented immigrant.
And, you know, for us living in Texas, that's probably higher.
It's probably, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it's, you know, twice that.
But, you know, they say, like, oh, if you deported the illegal aliens, like, who's going to flip your burgers? But
Flippy is the little robot.
yeah, we have robots to do this. We were just talking about automation earlier in the program. They're working on this currently. We don't need these people. We will be okay. They always try to make it out to us that we need them more than we need them more than they need us. And that is not the case at all. Otherwise, they wouldn't be afraid of being sent back. We'll find a way if we send them back to survive. I promise you that, liberals.
And if the only thing that that you get to do is next time you're driving by your Burger King or Wendy's, and
you have a kiosk,
and there's a help wanted sign, you say, "Hey, I need a job. I'm going to go apply."
But, you know, thinking of the future of automation, these people are just going to be replaced with robots. You're just going to go to McDonald's, and instead of an illegal alien being your cashier register, you're going to have an iPad there where you're going to click, oh, I want a Big Mac. And guess what? There's probably only going to be like 2 or 3 people working in the entire store, and your service is going to be better.
Yeah.
Because the robots aren't going to mess things up.
Yeah, when you say, I want no cheese on my burger, there's going to be no cheese on your burger.
Yeah. It's going to be better. Let's get with the program.
And it'll be faster. You know. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, let's go to the last story here.
Yes, the last story we have for immigration, this comes out of the San Francisco Chronicle. The Trump administration has plans to wipe out work permits for H-1B visa spouses. The Trump administration plans to stop granting work permits to the spouses of H-1B visa holders, overturning a 2015 rule and affecting thousands of foreigners currently in the United States, according to sources who have spoken to the Chronicle about the move. About 130,000 spouses and children of H-1B visa holders came to the U.S. on H-4 visas last year, a number that has been steadily increasing since 2012. Before President Barack Obama created a work permit for certain H-4 visa holders in 2015, these foreigners, often women, were not allowed to hold a job here or be issued a Social Security number.
So we're just letting these people in, knowing that they're not going to get a job or do anything. Is that essentially it?
Well, you know, as of 2015, we've been giving these people work, permits.
Right.
But the thing is, we get rid of these permits, and what's going to happen? They're just going to go back. They're going to go back if these avenues aren't there for them. So, you know, these are the spouses of people that are on H-1B visas, which is a thing that we want to reform as well.
And we're going after those, too.
Yeah, we're going after those. Because a lot of these visas that we, you know, give out, we don't need to be giving out. There's Americans that can fill these jobs. But, you know, we revoke the work permits for their, you know, spouses or their children, and they'll get the message, and they'll go out themselves. You know, everyone talks about, oh, how are you going to deport all the immigrants or whatever? They'll do it on their own. Believe me.
Either they do it on their own, or if you're someone knowing, hey, if I go to the U.S., I'm not going to be able to get on this program, that's going to disincentivize people to actually come here. So.
Yeah, we want to disincentivize these people from coming as well. So it's good that we're going after this stuff. We don't need to be giving out these work permits. We have plenty of Americans that can fill these jobs.
Precisely. So
let's move on to the election, the 2018 elections portion of the show, and which pretty much means we're going to talk about Roy Moore.
Yeah, the story that it seems like it's died off this week because of all the other allegations.
Definitely a colder week for Roy Moore news, but still stuff happened.
Yeah.
So, I guess the first thing that I wanted to go over is, I believe it was Monday this happened. More than 60 Alabama pastors signed an open letter condemning Roy Moore, saying he's not fit for office. The The short letter said that Moore is not fit for office because of the recent sexual misconduct allegations against him and the fact that his life and actions don't align with the Christian values he proclaims. Quote, even before the recent allegations of sexual abuse, Roy Moore demonstrated that he was not fit for office and that his extremist values and actions are not consistent with traditional Christian values or good Christian character. He and politicians like him have cynically used Christianity for their own goals, but Roy Moore does not speak for Christianity, and he acts in ways that are contrary to our faith. They explain that Roy Moore's priorities don't align with those the Bible says righteous men have, namely justice for society's most vulnerable people, the foreigner, poor, widow, and orphan.
You know, judging by that statement that those pastors released, you know, Roy Moore is probably going to be like the most Christian person in the Senate. I don't think that's a controversial statement to say.
Yeah, he'll be one of the most.
And yet they're coming out and saying, oh, nothing in his life lines up with good Christian values or Christian character. Whereas, like, everything he's done in his life has been because of Christian values and Christian character. I guarantee you none of those 60 pastors ever had any intent of voting on him even before this news broke.
No.
Because it sounds like they're all, like, liberal pastors.
Yeah.
Probably in the central region of Alabama there.
But, like, is it Christian values to, like, give away your country to foreigners?
Apparently
are you
it is.
required by the Bible to do that? I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I don't think that's in there. I don't think you're required to give away your country to, foreigners. All Roy Moore wants to do is get in there and, crack down on immigration a little bit. Let's actually fix the system for Americans. But that's not allowed because that it goes against the Bible, I guess, according to these pastors.
Yeah.
But, separation of church and state, but you're not following Christianity, so no.
Yeah, the one time the left doesn't complain about separation of church and state. But even then, there's more information that came out about Roy Moore as well.
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to go?
Yeah, yours was next.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, the Roy Moore campaign released 3 witness statements that refuted that mall story.
Do you remember what the mall story was? Can you say that
Yeah,
one more
we
time?
talked about this last week because one of the people, I forget which one of them, but, last week we talked about an individual that said the allegations are that Roy Moore was banned from the Gadsden Mall because he was some sort of sexual predator to underage women. But there are 3 different statements that have come out now that they released this week that, are contrary to that. So let me go through them. Johnny Adams was the operations manager at the mall for 14 years and was employed by the mall for 26 years. Quote, in my 26 years working at Gadsden Mall, I never heard anything about Roy Moore being banned from the mall or any other mention of issues concerning him, Adams said. As the operations manager overseeing mall security, I would have been aware of something like that. Another statement came from Joni V. Sanders, who worked at the mall from the late 1970s until the mid-2000s. As an employee of the Gadsden Mall for Morrison's Cafeteria Corporation from the late 1970s through the mid-2000s, I would like to put forth a statement in regards to the allegations against Judge Roy Moore. During my time at the Gadsden Mall, I formed many lifelong relationships, including one with Barnley Boyle and his wife Brenda. Barnes Boyle was a manager of the Gadsden Mall, and Brenda was my manager at Morrison's Cafeteria for many years. Because of this relationship, I was abreast on the latest situations that happened throughout the Gadsden Mall during that period of time. There was a prominent man of Etowah County whom is now deceased that was banned for reasons such as the allegations against Judge Moore. However, due to respect for the family, I declined to reveal his name. Despite allegations against other patrons of the mall, I've never heard of Roy Moore's name come in conversation with such misconduct against women or a supposed banning from the Gadsden Mall. And the last statement comes from Barnes Boyle himself, who's the man that we talked about last week. And he was the floor manager of the mall from 1981 until 1986. Quote, I did not have written reports and things. To my knowledge, he was not banned from the mall.
So that's 3 prominent figures who worked at the mall, all of which who would have had knowledge whether he was banned from the mall or people talked about him or had any, stuff floats around to mall security at the very least.
They would know.
Yes.
If he was banned. Like,
all three
the
of them are
second
saying
guy
no.
said there was someone that was banned from the mall for things that are alleged against Roy Moore, and he was banned, but Roy Moore was not an individual that was banned for the allegations against him. So, the fake news, it's a friggin' industry. It's a weapon levied against our politicians here on the right. And, we can refute this garbage all day, but it doesn't matter to people because all they hear is the accusation. They don't hear the retraction. They don't hear the refutation. They just hear Roy Moore did this, so, because they hate Republicans, I guess.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, they have their confirmation bias. It activates and says, wow, it's being alleged that Roy Moore did this. That means he did this. And that's bullshit. So
that's one story that's blown up, and another story that's been blowing up is yearbook woman, Mrs. Beverly Nelson.
Yes.
So we've been talking about her story for 3 weeks now, at least 2 weeks. Anyways, she's the one with the yearbook that has an obviously forged signature, whatever. But her former boyfriend, a guy by the name of Jeff Devine, who attended high school with Mrs. Young and is currently living in Thailand, where he runs a company called Divine Ministries with his wife and his daughters. He says that she's lying. And so he also provided a copy of his high school yearbook, which has a lengthy message written by her, talking about Miss Nelson, to him, signed by, quote, Beverly Young, using her maiden name before she got married, now is Beverly Young Nelson. I believe he released a statement. He said that, I want to see if I can find it right here. Yeah. Asked about the allegations, Devine stated, no, I don't believe it. Speaking to the news from via Skype, he said that his estimation was, quote, based off just my experience with people and not any specific evidence that Nelson was being dishonest, said, quote, I certainly wouldn't qualify as an expert, but I've been in the ministry for many years. I have dealt with a lot of people that have been through trauma, people that have been through molested or hurt in all kinds of situations. I have learned to just study body language and the way a person tells a story. And as I said, I wouldn't qualify, if I'm sure, in a court of law as being an expert, but just from my experiences, I didn't find her story believable and the way she told it. I could only guess her motive, he stated. Whether somebody has offered her something to do this, I really couldn't say. I would only be guessing. So, what I failed to mention earlier is that as part of Divine Ministries or Divine Ministries, part of his ministry, which focuses on rescuing children, he has worked with many victims of rape and other trauma. So the type of stuff that she's alleging, would be similar to the people he deals with on a daily basis and has been dealing with pretty much his entire life. He studies those people. He understands those people. He can recognize patterns that develop. And he's saying, yeah, the stuff that she's coming forward and saying, the way she's saying it, her body language, the way she's telling the story, I just don't believe it. I don't see it there. And, frankly, I believe this guy because he did know her as well.
yeah.
And you think that if she was doing something like that, he would at least, if he was at least friends with her, to the fact that she wrote a very lengthy thing in the yearbook. And when you sign people's yearbooks, you don't write lengthy things for people that you just don't know very well, or you're just kind of like an acquaintance, but not
Then
really
you just
friend.
sign it.
You just sign it or be like, have a good summer, stuff like that. When you write lengthy things, this thing's take up half a page here in the picture. When you write lengthy things like that, that's when you're close friends with someone. So he's close friends with her. He would have known if Roy Moore was doing anything to her or anything along that lines.
Yeah.
So that, on top of the fact that, the stuff that he deals with on a daily basis isn't consistent with the way that she's telling the story, body language, etc., he doesn't believe her. And frankly, I believe this guy.
Which, we could go over, the yearbook as evidence. We did that last week. We could go over it again. So she puts out this yearbook that supposedly is signed in December, oddly enough. Who gets their yearbook in December? But it's supposedly signed by Roy Moore, and there's just a lot of strange things about it. It has 2 different colors of ink. used in the same signature, not showing any signs of like, oh, the pen was going out, so we grabbed a new pen. No, the lines are solid all the way through, and then you get later into it, it's in a completely different color of pen. The signature...
It's the signature that's a different color than the message itself. In fact, the first name, Roy, which on that signature, it almost looks like it says Ray.
Yeah.
That's in the original color.
Yeah.
It's the word more and then everything after it. That's what's written in a different color.
But then there's also, like, strangeness as far as it says, like, the complete date and location to where this was signed. So then it would be as though to say, like, oh, I'm Roy Moore, I'm going to sign this, and then put, I wrote it here, and then I wrote it on this date. So this can be used as incriminating evidence for me 40 years down the line.
And not only that, in the message it said, like, Merry Christmas. So, that would at least lend credence to maybe it actually was signed in December. But not only does it say Merry Christmas, it's then signed Christmas 77 and then says 12/22/77. Yeah. 3 times it mentions the date.
And then it also puts down that he's the DA.
When he was the deputy DA, so it'd be DDA.
Yeah. So someone got their, information wrong when they're trying to forge this.
Yeah, definitely.
And, Gloria Allred, who's representing this lady, that's, the yearbook lady, they're calling for her to, submit the evidence to forensic analysis. But she's saying, no, we're not going to do that unless Roy Moore is put in front of an ethics committee, in the Senate.
You'd think that if you wanted your damning evidence to bring him down, you would release that immediately for forensic analysis and handwriting experts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Immediately to take him down. Instead,
what are you hiding if you're not able to submit it?
Instead, you're like, let's just wait until after he wins and gets in office, then have an ethics committee where I can, put forward this evidence to maybe bring him down. Oh, guess what? If you remove a sitting senator, you know who gets replaced? By whoever the freaking governor of that state wants to replace them for the remaining portion of their term.
Yeah.
So, what? At best, you get, like, Luther Strange back? Granted, that's not something I want to have happen, but still, it's not like you're going to have a Democrat win that spot.
Yeah.
And even then, Beverly Nelson is saying that she never had contact with Roy Moore after, she knew him in the 70s, and yet when she got divorced in 1999, he was the one who was overseeing that divorce case as the DA. So she did have contact with him at that point. So she's obviously lying there.
And these people get caught up in their lies.
Yeah. And so, you have already one lie, plus a second thing, which I'm referring to as the yearbook, which seems like it's a lie to anyone who's actually, like, studied this. And, not to get too off topic, but the other lady who's claiming, like, he grabbed my ass when my mom was standing next to me, she's got a history of check fraud. Multiple convictions of check fraud. So you got these people that have histories of, like, lying, are trying to be the ones who are saying, I'm all high and mighty, but I don't believe any of them at all. And, frankly, I think a lot of the people in the state of Alabama don't believe it either. And the reason I say that is because, the polls have gotten a little bit closer, but 2 new polls have been released within the last week that show Roy Moore up by 6, and the third poll was released also as well that has Roy Moore up by 7. So granted, it's not the 17-point lead that we saw, beforehand, but if anyone thought that, this was actually going to stump those people, they understand it's a completely motivated hit job on him, and they don't believe it at all.
Yeah.
And he's still going to win this election. In fact, last week on the show, I predicted that Roy Moore would win by, like, 7 to 10 points, which definitely is not the 17 points that the earlier polls had him up by. I'm actually going to revise that. I think he wins by 10 plus, but less than 15. So 10 to 15 is my estimated range. I mean, that election is December 15th. I mean, we're talking, that thing's like what? I'm sorry, not December 15th. Or is it December 12th? What was the exact date?
I think it's 12th.
12th?
I think it's December 12th.
Okay, yeah. So, like, even then, that's like, not even 3 weeks from now, maybe 3 weeks from now, less than 3 weeks from now. Less than 3 weeks from now is that election. So we'll be able to see how this actually happens. And, like I said, it seems like the Roy Moore stuff has kind of died down this week. The only information and stuff that we have coming out here on our list of, like, stuff we got for today's episode is poll numbers and people disproving the stories that have already been told.
Yeah.
That's essentially it.
And
Now,
to touch on where we're getting those poll numbers from, the first two that have him up 6 are from Atlantic Media and Research and WT&S Consulting, and then the one that has him up 7 points is from Sky Research, just to cover our bases on that.
yes, thank you for that. But other than that, Trump himself hasn't actually come out directly and said, "I support Roy Moore."
It's been interesting, his tweets on this.
Yeah, he's never said we need Roy Moore to win. He's been saying we need Doug Jones to lose.
Yeah.
It's essentially, in fact, he actually has some tweets here. He says, quote, this was when he was giving a a mini press conference on the same day that he pardoned the turkey, that ceremony. They asked him about it. He said, quote, "We don't need a liberal Democrat in that seat." And they said, quote, "I've looked at his record. It's terrible on crime. It's terrible on the border. It's terrible on the military. I can tell you for a fact we do not need somebody that's going to be bad on crime, bad on borders, and bad with the military, and bad for the Second Amendment." And then later when they asked about Roy Moore directly, he said, quote, "He totally denies it. He says it didn't happen." And then he says, 40 years is a long time. He's run in 8 races, and this has never come up, which is, the same talking point that many people on the right have been using. So yeah, Trump hasn't directly said, "I support Roy Moore," because he promised us to campaign for Roy Moore if he won against Luther Strange in the primary, which, that hasn't happened yet. I can understand why Trump doesn't want to, with his history of what they tried to do to him last year, I'm sure he doesn't want to have to do that. But that being said, he's still not, coming out against Roy Moore at all. He's still supporting him, whether it be indirectly rather than directly stating
He's
it.
trying to be passive about it.
Yeah, which, I'm perfectly fine with that.
But, at the same token, you do not see a single Democrat
Right.
going down and campaigning with Doug Jones. They're not getting themselves involved with this, because for all the hubbub that's going on, I think they know that he's just going to lose.
Mhm.
It's not worth their time.
Not worth their time.
For a Democrat senator to win in Alabama, it's just not something that's going to happen when the state's plus R12. Okay? Maybe the margin's going to be closer, but if you have a problem with Roy Moore, you're just not going to show up. You're not going to switch parties.
Yeah, especially if you're someone who lives there, who studies where the different candidates stand on the issues. If you're a super right-wing conservative evangelical Christian,
there's nothing you like about
why
Jones.
would you vote for someone that's anti-gun, pro-abortion, bad on the military, bad on crime, bad on immigration? Everything that you don't believe in. You're not going to vote for that person. Like you said, if anything, you're just going to not vote.
Yeah. Which is fine. Even if voter turnout is lower, I still think Roy Moore has this. So
like I said, we did the math. You'd have to get every single Democrat that voted in the primary to show up, plus 1/3 of Republicans to switch over in order for Doug Jones to win that election.
yeah.
And 1/3 of Republicans are not going to switch. In fact, I'd say it's probably going to be less than 2% of Republicans actually switch and say, you know what, screw it, I'm going to vote for Doug Jones, who doesn't agree with anything that I believe in.
There's not crossover on these platforms.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, it's pretty dumb. Let's move on to the last thing that we have for election.
Well, actually, I had one more thing for Roy Moore. So this is just a quick little thing. But Brett Doster, a strategist from Roy Moore's campaign, appeared in an article by the Washington Post earlier today, and this is really funny. So during the press conference, a guy by the name of it was Michael Scherher, who is a writer for the Washington Post. He asked him a question about Lee Korfman, who's the woman who says that he grabbed her butt. She's the one who's got the check fraud history. But Duster replied, and he said, quote, "The Washington Post is a worthless pile of crap that has gone out of its way to railroad Roy Moore. There is no need for anyone at the Washington Post to ever reach out to the Roy Moore campaign again, because we will not respond to anyone from the Post now or in the future. Happy Thanksgiving." So, Roy Moore's campaign has not, they've doubled down on their support for him.
Yeah.
They haven't wavered on this issue at all. They have handled this situation perfectly.
And we've read over and over from people on the ground that have said, I supported Roy Moore initially, but after seeing what they're trying to do to this guy, I support him even more now.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see that in turnout. I mean, I'm not predicting the turnout will be higher, but I think his base's turnout will be much stronger, which will be enough to get him through this. But, let's go on to the numbers I wanted to go over on fundraising before we go on to the Mama Stack National News. So, according to fundraising numbers on Tuesday, the DNC managed to raise only $3.9 million in October, which is 1/3 of the $9.2 million the RNC raised in October. That is the worst October the DNC has had in more than 15 years. And as of October, the Republican Party is now out of debt. It has raised $113.2 million in the year, with around $40 million in the bank, ready for the midterms, while the Democrats have raised about half, $55 million, with only $5 million available on hand and $3.2 million in debt from the 2016 campaigns. So, they're not doing good in the numbers as much as the resistance is talked about on the TV. People aren't willing to cut checks to them anymore. And that has a lot to do with, the civil war that we're seeing right now in the DNC, especially after, Donna Brazile opened her mouth about the practices that were going on during the primaries, which rigged the primaries for Hillary Clinton. How can people trust to give the DNC money, when they do such things? How can they be ones to complain like, oh, the Russians subverted our democracy, when you guys subverted your own democracy in your own elections? Doesn't make sense. They're not Democrats. They're not democratic, If you're not democratic, how can you be a Democrat? That's like, the root that it comes from.
They're the ones who claim to love democracy, and yet, there you go.
It's weird. But do you have any thoughts on this fundraising?
Well, all I got to say is just, going back to those numbers we're looking at. So, the Democrats only have $5 million for the 2018 races. The Republicans have $40 million. So that's 8 times as much money the Republicans have. And like we said before, the Democrats have 200 people running in the primaries. The most they've ever had before is like 60. And they got to spend money to they're essentially going to spend money on their establishment candidates to try to wave off, more populist Bernie-style Democrats that are going to challenge them in the primaries. Same thing that's going to happen to us, except our side's actually going to win.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe they will win the primaries, but, they're forcing each other to go left.
Exactly, and that's the whole point. If you can get enough extreme left-wing people out in a primary to get an extreme left-wing person on the ballot, and your Republican candidate's more like center-right, regular everyday people are going to be like, yeah, I'm going with the Republican instead. I'm not going to go with this super far lefty. So if anything, if the Democrats actually want to try to regain the House, they're not going to regain the Senate. If they want to try to regain the House, they're going to have to push right.
Yeah.
And the primaries are going to have to spend money pushing themselves to the left.
And as we've said before, if the Democrats were able to get every single district in this country that Hillary Clinton won, and every single district that Trump won, by 5 points or less, which would be a phenomenally good midterms, they still wouldn't have enough to get the House.
Yeah.
Put on top of that, they're defending how many Senate seats? It's like
23, 10 of which are from states that Trump won.
Yeah. They have to defend 23 Senate seats.
Now, granted, a lot of those are like extreme far left states that it's not going to matter.
A lot of them won't matter.
But still.
10 are in states that Donald Trump won, though. There are a lot of Senate seats that are very, very at risk for them right now. And that's where they need to focus their money, okay? It's important to keep those Senate seats more so than any individual House seat. So, they only have $5 million to even spend on hand at the moment. That's not enough to even, secure up, 2 or 3 guys. They're going to have to do some real hard work getting some money in. This is just to defend themselves, let alone to go on the offensive and take districts from us.
To retake red districts.
Yeah, to retake red districts. And what's the message to do that? You can't just say, oh, we're going to get you free college. Everyone can see through that. If you're promising that, you're not going to do it at the end of the day. Okay? It's very obvious. So, the midterms, they try to make it seem like there's going to be some sort of big blue wave, but
the media's
it's
trying
not
to push
coming.
that so hard, but you're right, it's not coming at all.
And, what we saw recently in Virginia and New Jersey, which, let's be honest, those are blue states to begin with, what we saw is not a massive blue wave, we just saw low red turnout.
Right.
Okay, Ralph...
Especially in Virginia.
Yeah, especially in Virginia. Ralph Northam had 600,000 less votes than Donald Trump received during the general election. If those people showed up, he'd be the governor. But, he's kind of a cuck, and that's why people didn't go and show up for it. I can promise you, if Corey Stewart was the nominee for governor, he would have won that.
Side.
Yeah. So... let that be the lesson for the establishment. You need to be serious in backing Donald Trump. Otherwise, you're just going to lose things. But
and frankly, I think that's a good thing, especially in the primaries. That's a good thing. Because I don't, as much as I hate to say this, it is true. If it comes down to establishment Republican versus establishment Democrat or progressive Democrat, you got to go with the establishment Republican.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as I hate to say that, it's better than nothing. So
yeah. But, money stuff, looking at 2018, very, very good stuff for us here on the right. Very bad stuff for the left. And their optimism is misplaced, just kind of like their money.
Yep. Let's move on.
Let's move on. So, this is something I don't really know much about, but I know you know about. And
right.
This is that John
Conyers
stuff.
He is the, I should say he was the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, but there's been a lot of talk recently about some sexual misconduct allegations he had, and in regards to the fact that apparently what he did was back in 2015 a former staffer alleged she was fired because she didn't succumb to his sexual advances, and they settled a wrongful dismissal complaint against her, which pretty much means they paid her off to not press charges. And so I think we talked about this on the show last week, or it might have been just us in our private conversations throughout the week. But they've talked about how, the House has this big fund of money that apparently it's like a slush fund that they've been using for decades to pay off people that have, sexual misconduct allegations. And they've paid off, $2 or $3 million over the past couple of years to people just to not pursue charges against members of Congress. And that's inside their budget, and it's unable to be audited because of different rules that they've passed to prevent this sort of stuff from happening. But Conyers' was not paid out of that fund. It was paid out of his own money or whatnot, which was still taxpayer money. So because of that, we're aware of this one here. So
Conyers is the representative from where?
He is in Michigan. It's a D+. He's the longest serving member in the House of Representatives. He's 88 years old, has been in his House seat since 1965. Okay? 2 years after JFK was assassinated, this guy gets elected, and he's been in there ever since.
Time to drain some swamps on
Time
this guy.
to drain that swamp is right. But he's from Michigan. I believe it's from the Detroit area because it's a D+33 district. I looked it up. So that sounds like it would be from Detroit or somewhere in that area. Anyways, the House Ethics Panel has actually said that they're going to launch an investigation into the sexual harassment allegations against him. But throughout all this entire thing, he has said that he has no plans to resign. Of course, he has no plans to resign. Both him and his attorney have said that he has no plans to resign. And Nancy Pelosi herself was even interviewed by NBC. I believe this was this morning, actually. They released this. Yeah, this morning they released this tweet. So, she was being asked by Chuck Todd on Meet the Press. He said, Conyers, in or out? Her answer was, quote, "We are strengthened by due process. Was it one accusation or two? John Conyers is an icon in our country."
Icon.
So she calls that guy an icon.
I looked it up. Yeah, he's from Michigan's 13th district, which is portions of Detroit and some of its surrounding suburbs.
Okay, so Detroit area. Yeah, I figured, a state a swing state with a D+33 is going to be in your bigger cities like that.
Yeah.
But even though he has no plans to resign, And Nancy Pelosi's making a fool out of herself, calling him an icon in our country. He has stepped down his post on the House Judiciary Committee. He was the ranking member, which means, Republicans control Congress, so Republicans control all the committees. But your ranking member is whoever is the highest ranked non-governing body party member on the whatever committee you have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he's the highest member from the opposition party.
Right, that's what the way I was trying to describe it. And but that's the position he had on the House Judiciary Committee. He has said that, I believe, okay, there's a quote right here, quote, "After careful consideration and in light of the attention drawn by recent allegations made against me, I have notified the Democratic leader of my request to step aside as ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee during the investigation of these matters." He then went on to say, "I deny these allegations, many of which were raised by documents reportedly paid for by a partisan alt-right blogger. I very much look forward to vindicating myself and my family before the House Committee on Ethics." And if you're wondering who that quote-unquote partisan alt-right blogger is, Mike Cernovich, who is definitely not an alt-right person.
No. I mean, he's right-wing.
Yeah.
But
they
throw around these labels so often,
Yeah.
they discredit
I mean,
them.
I follow Mike Cernovich on Twitter. I've kind of seen how people talk about him. I'll tell you one thing. I don't really like him. I think he's kind of an idiot at times. But
he's sometimes very good.
I will give him credit. This entire Conyers thing is all on him. He was the one who discovered the story, broke it, everything. I give him 2 thumbs up for all the work that he's done revealing the story to the public. So,
Which, okay, dude, have you heard of fallacies? You don't attack the source, you attack the evidence.
Right.
Can you attack the evidence? No. So you're attacking the source, which just shows to us that, you don't have a defense, really. You're showing us that now. So
it's the same thing with the WikiLeaks emails. They didn't attack the documents. They attacked, it was Russia, when it wasn't.
Yeah.
Same exact concept. And I think people get that. If you have allegations and all you're doing is attacking the person that released it and you're just ignoring what they actually say, people see through that. Or at least I tend to think nowadays people start to see through that.
Yeah.
Anyways, what I was trying to say earlier about that slush fund they had, they said that when they broke the story about Conyers' office, they said that he paid $27,000 to settle a complaint about this woman. But they said that between 1997 and 2017, $17 million had been handled out in settlements to individuals or groups of individuals who filed a variety of charges against members of Congress and staff, including sexual harassment claims. So the last 20 years, $17 million. That's almost $1 million a year out of the House's budget, which is from your taxes that get paid, which the House allocates in their spending bills, is all completely being going towards paying people in settlements for sexual harassment claims.
Yeah.
So
it's funny, they complain, talking about Michigan. They always say why don't the Republicans do anything to fix the water out there in Flint, Michigan? I think $17 million would have been enough to fix it. I don't know how this stuff works, but I think it would have went a long way.
Exactly. And there's been a lot of push here for Congress to release the data of all that $17 million in terms of who was paying out, what was the reason
where,
behind
why.
it, that sort of stuff. Release the documents or some similar hashtag like that's been trending on Twitter. And they said that if you are one of those people that shows up to congressional town hall meetings in your district, ask your congressman to release that stuff. And I think it was a lot of lefties who did that who've been pushing that because they think it's all going to be white male Republicans in Congress, whereas that's not true. I mean, here's the longest serving Democrat senator, anybody, the longest serving representative, and he's a black Democrat from Detroit.
Yeah.
It's not going to be all white male
It's not going to
Republicans.
go the way they want it to.
Exactly. And I'm completely in favor of this because most of the people that are going to be targeted by this are going to be establishment people of both parties rather than more right-wing people. So if anything, this is just going to help us, especially in the primaries when you say, hey, by the way, the guy I'm running against, he paid $10,000 to some chick to not file charges when he grabbed her ass last week or something like that. You know what I mean? So, if anything, I'm completely in favor. Go ahead, release the names, paint a target on everyone's back, all that sort of stuff. I'm totally for it.
Yeah. But since we're on the subject of allegations against Democrats, let's move on to an individual we talked about last week, but he has some new allegations this week, and that is Minnesota Democratic Senator Al Franken. So we all know about the initial, allegations against him from Leanne Tweeden, the lady that was on that USO tour with him back in 2006. On Monday, we received some new allegations from a lady named Lindsay Menz, who accused Franken of groping her at the Minnesota State Fair in 2010. But that's not all. We also have, this is from Huffington Post, so it's funny that they're covering this. But there's also 2 additional women that have not revealed their identities because, they don't want reprisals against them, but they also have stories. So the first woman who's withholding her identity said Franken groped her when they posed for a photo after a June 25th, 2007 event hosted by the Minnesota Women's Political Caucus in Minneapolis. Quote, "My story is eerily similar to Lindsay Menz's story. He grabbed my buttocks during a photo op." The second woman told Huffington Post that Franken cupped her butt with his hand at a 2008 Democratic fundraiser in Minneapolis, then suggested the two visit the bathroom together. She spoke on condition of anonymity out of fear the allegations would affect her position at work. Quote, "My immediate reaction was disgust, but my secondary reaction was disappointment. I was excited to be there and to meet him, and so to have that happen really deflated me. It felt like, is this really the person who is going to be in a position of power to represent our community?" So, yeah, more allegations against, Al Franken, and I can't say to whether they're true or not, but, yeah, we should look into them. And it's just funny, the hypocrisy of how the media handles Roy Moore and Al Franken.
Mm-hmm.
They're going hard against Roy Moore, but it seems like there's more with Al Franken. I mean, we have photo evidence of one of these sexual harassment things happening, and now more women are coming out.
And I tend to be one of the people that I believe that every single allegation made against anybody should be investigated.
I give everyone the reason, of doubt on this stuff. But when things come out, I change my mind,
Yeah. And like I said, I actually take the viewpoint, I think every person that comes out and says this, you should investigate every single case as much as you can. Because what that does is it also proves the stories that are lying. Because if a woman comes out and says, oh, he did this, blah, 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 you investigate and you find out that it's a lie. If you didn't investigate it, you weren't going to find out that it's a lie. Whereas otherwise, you find out, hey, this stuff's actually true. Like the freaking Roy Moore stuff. Talk about, the yearbook again. That was literally our position on the show is you need to investigate this because we know that the thing's a forgery. You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
So I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, she's obviously lying, it's a joke. I'm saying, no, do it, investigate it.
Yeah,
figure out whether or not
seriously.
It's true. I don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, black, white, whatever. Investigate it, expose the people, get them out of there, because all that does is that helps our side to get our people to replace them. That's why I really support it, too. So.
Yeah. But, yeah, I like to see where this stuff is going. I don't know, Al Franken hasn't said he's going to be resigning. And there hasn't been a lot of calls for him to resign from people.
The only calls have been coming from the right. Very few in the left.
Which it's funny, where's John McCain and Mitt Romney to say that Al Franken needs to resign? There are none.
Nope.
But they've all said that for Roy Moore.
Whether or not these allegations are true, he should step down anyways.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that statement being released from Romney about Al Franken. No, sorry, Bob.
Nope. So, yeah, really hypocritical stuff on that. Let's move on to the next thing. So, a judge has ruled that the U.S. must fund transgender surgeries for military members and has blocked Trump's ban on transgenders joining the military. A federal district court judge in Maryland ruled Tuesday that the U.S. must continue to fund sex reassignment surgeries for transgender service members in the military, citing that they have already suffered harmful consequences after President Donald Trump called for a transgender ban in the military. The Trump administration can't deny funding for certain medical care for transgender service members, said District Judge Marvin Garbus. Quote, in his 53-page order, Garbus said that the transgender service members challenging the ban have demonstrated that they are already suffering harmful consequences such as the cancellation and postponement of surgeries, the stigma of being set apart as inherently unfit, facing the prospect of discharge and inability to commission as an officer, the inability to move forward with long-term medical plans, and the threat of their prospects of attaining long-term assignments.
By the way, this is coming out of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
Which is not as bad as the Ninth, but pretty much the same thing. It's like the only two that are super lefty. So, of course, they filed it in this one. It covers, like, Virginia, D.C., Maryland, that sort of area.
Yeah. So, no transgender ban. And not only that, you are paying for the reassignment surgeries, even though, when you look at the numbers on this stuff, it ends up costing us, hundreds of thousands of dollars per individual we have to do this for, even though it's not a life-essential surgery. It's a cosmetic thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy that we even have to deal with this, but I guess it's a thing.
Roy Moore, when he was giving a speech last week, he made a statement saying, quote, we need to end judicial supremacy in this country. And that's absolutely true, because a single judge like this can affect the entire military for something that should be cut and dry, which, don't pay for these people's surgeries. Don't allow them to serve in the military, which, if anything, what it's going to do is by bringing this back up, it just forces people to have to talk about that during debates for next year.
Yeah.
And if you're someone on the left, are you really going to try to risk that in like a swing district saying, yeah, what I really want to fight for right now is letting the transgenders serve in the military? Whereas the person on the right's like, hey, we failed at getting healthcare, we failed at getting tax cuts. I'm sorry that you have no money left. I'm sorry that you can't afford your healthcare right now, or your health insurance policies because of, Obamacare making the premiums go up. This guy's over here talking about some wacky stuff like trannies in the military. I'm out here saying, like, I'm here to help you. Who do you think those people are going to vote for?
Yeah.
So, if anything, I'm glad that they struck this ban down, because all that's going to do is just strengthen it, send it to the Supreme Court where we can rule it in our favor once and for all.
Yeah, so we'll have to see where this stuff goes. Let's move on to something we talked about quite a while ago, but has resurfaced.
This is also something a court has ruled you can't do. But this court is actually correct in their statement. So, a few months back, Seattle passed a tax on the wealthy, which, if you don't know, in the state of Washington, you can't pass a state income tax. It's illegal in their state constitution.
Yeah.
But what the city of Seattle did was the city itself, unanimously on their city council, passed an income tax on wealthy households. It was a 2.25% tax on income above $250,000 for individuals, and $500,000 for married couples filing together. So the city itself passed an income tax, not the state, the city, on wealthy individuals. Well, immediately that got challenged in the court, and the first court ruling that's come out today, where a King County, which King County is the county that Seattle's in, a King County Superior Court ruling said that the measure is in fact illegal. Judge John R. Rule agreed with the people challenging it, saying that it is not authorized under state law. This was back in July, when they passed it. So they said, quote, the city knowingly violated several laws in imposing the tax, said a senior attorney for the Pacific Legal Foundation, which represented the Seattle residents challenging the law. He said, this ruling is probably the worst case scenario for the city and the best case scenario for opponents of the income tax. The city says they plan to appeal it higher to the state's Supreme Court, where I'm sure they'll get the exact same ruling.
Yeah.
So don't tax people when your state constitution says you can't do it.
These stupid socialists in Seattle can't even, follow their own goddamn rules in their state.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, when they labeled it an income tax, they literally labeled it an income tax. They didn't label it an excise tax or anything like that where they can try to frame it in some way. They literally labeled it as an income tax. From the get-go, this thing's illegal. But there's actually a funny quote here. I wanted to see if I can figure out the name of the guy who said it, or who he was. His last name was Hodges. I believe he was another either judge or something like that. Anyways, he said, quote, "In order to uphold its income tax, the city would have to convince a court that individual income is not protected by the Constitution." So yeah, there you go. That kind of makes sense a lot.
Yeah. So good stuff out of there in Seattle.
For once, a good story coming out of Seattle.
Yeah. Usually very weird stories coming out of Seattle.
Yeah, and the next story that we have, for those of you who are against abortion, you could say that this is also some good news too. We have reports out of the CDC, which is the CDC, that Centers for Disease Control, that the abortion rate in the United States has actually dropped to a historic low. They said it dropped a significant 2% since 2013. And they've got some of the data here. They said in 2014 there were 12.1 abortions per 1,000 women of childbearing age, which is down from 19.4 in 2008. So that's dropped by 40%, something like that, if the math is correct. Maybe not 40, 30-something percent.
Substantially.
A substantial report. Yeah, over 30% drop just since 2008. So pretty much 9 years, which is very, very good. They said that while the drop mirrors the closure of abortion clinics nationwide, experts say the figure is likely down to more effective uses of contraception and the falling pregnancy rate, because just less people are getting pregnant. They said that a majority of the abortions, almost 60%, were performed in women in their 20s. And they said the new study revealed that the decline in abortions might be due in part to increased uses of contraceptives, specifically among women aged 20 to 24, who account for about one-third of unintended pregnancies. They said a report released in September 2016 found the sharp drop in teen pregnancy was down to rising rates of contraception used correctly. And they said that between 2007 and 2012, the number of new mothers aged 15 to 19 years old dropped 5.6%. So if you're against abortion, good stuff, because the less people getting abortions because less people getting pregnant. Bad news is less people are getting pregnant, which means that your birth rates are also dropping as well.
Yeah.
And we have covered that on the show extensively as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they actually have the exact data I was looking for. They said the abortion rate among young girls of that age, and the age they're referring to is 15 to 19 years old here. The abortion rate among young girls aged 15 to 19 has declined 46% since 2008. So,
oh, wow.
Really, really significant.
Nearly half.
Yeah, nearly half. So that's some good news. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Let's go on to this Vegas thing.
Right. So again, we still know next to nothing about the Vegas shooter or anything like that. But we did get a little bit of information was released this week, and even then, it's not really all that significant. They counted that the Las Vegas gunman fired roughly 1,100 rounds during his shooting, and he had over 4,000 rounds unfired in his suite there in his hotel room. So think about this. We still don't know the exact numbers as to how many people were shot versus how many people were injured via, trampling or anything like that, because all they say is that 500 were injured and 58 were killed. Okay, so you could say all 500 were people that were injured via shooting, or all 500 people that were injured via, running around. If you do the math here, okay, if you say that every single person that was killed was someone that was shot, and the 500 people that were injured, none of which were shot, which we know is not true, okay, that's 500, that's 58 people out of 1,100 rounds? So that's saying that the guy had a 5% success rate. If all 500 people that were injured were all shot, you're saying that guy had a 45% success rate. At that distance, full auto, into that kind of crowd.
At night,
with bump stocks that are inaccurate, apparently, if you actually use the bump stocks, there's no way you had 45% accuracy. Okay, a person at a gun range with a pistol 30 feet away from their target, and by the word accuracy, I'm just going to say the circle that they have on the target.
Center mass.
If you're not that good a shot, which by all sense and purposes, nothing claimed that this guy was ever some sort of like gun enthusiast who would go shooting a lot. There's nothing to believe that he would be a good shot. No one's going to have 45% especially full auto. And I'm not even saying like burst fire. I'm talking like boom, 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 full auto.
You watch the videos, he's going full auto.
When you're going full auto, that decreases your accuracy the longer you hold that down because of recoil and whatnot. Like I said, that's why the military doesn't even use full auto for their regular rifles that they do on patrols and stuff. They use burst fire. Because that way you're shooting multiple shots, because, you want to shoot multiple shots just in case the one shot misses. But you don't want to do full auto, so that's why burst fire is the way to go. Even the military doesn't have 45% accuracy with what they're shooting. So you're telling me that the entire time that guy did that, he only fired 1,100 rounds? All right, think about this, okay? If you've got 1,100 rounds being fired, granted, some of them were, larger clip sizes, but for the most part, they said he was using 30-round clips. You're telling me that guy fired and reloaded 36 times?
I mean, that's what they're
Because that's 1,100 divided by 30. If every magazine was 30 rounds, let's say every magazine was
50 rounds.
Was 60 rounds. Here you had double. He reloads 18 times in 10 minutes. Or let's say you had 100-round drums. That's 11 times. And not everything was a 100-round drum. We know that from the pictures released from that suite.
Yeah.
So, if you watch the videos, you can hear bop, 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 bop. It sounds like he's firing more than 30 shots before he stops. But we still don't know why he stopped. Why did he stop? He's got 4,000 rounds still in there. Why did he stop?
Yeah.
It's, if anything, this is, like we said, we know next to nothing about the Las Vegas story, and the stuff we do, every single time they release new information, the story just gets weirder and weirder. And again, they say, oh yeah, he fired 1,100 rounds, he had 4,000 unused in his hotel room. That still makes this story even stranger. It just does not make any sense at all.
Yeah. Still don't have any idea what was going on fully. And I don't know, at this pace, it seems like we just never will.
It's unfortunate, but you're right. I don't think we will. So let's go on to this last story here.
Yeah, this is the last story we're going to do before current year college craziness. This is a story out of Iowa. Dakota Access protesters claim responsibility for pipeline sabotage. 2 Iowa activists with a history of arrests for political dissent are claiming responsibility for repeatedly damaging the Dakota Access pipeline while the 4-state, $3.8 billion project was under construction in Iowa. Jessica Resnick, 35, and Ruby Montoya, 27, both of Des Moines, held a news conference Monday outside the Iowa Utilities Board offices where they provided a detailed description of their deliberate efforts to stop the pipeline's completion. They were taken into custody by state troopers immediately afterwards when they abruptly began using a crowbar and a hammer to damage a sign on state property. They started taking the letters off the Iowa Utilities Board office. Both women are involved in Iowa's Catholic worker social justice movement, and they described their pipeline sabotage as a direct action campaign that began on Election Day 2016. They said their first incident of destruction involved burning at least 5 pieces of heavy equipment on the pipeline route in northwest Iowa's Buena Vista County. Quote, the Dakota Access Pipeline is an issue that affects the entire nation and the people that are subject to its rule, Resnick said. With DAPL, the Dakota Access Pipeline, we have seen incredible issues regarding the rule of law, indigenous sovereignty, land seizures, state-sanctioned brutality, as well as corporate protections and pardons of their wrongdoings. To all of those that continue to be subjected to the government's injustices, we humbly stand with you, and we ask now that you stand with us. The 2 women said that they researched how to pierce the steel pipe used for the pipeline, and in March they began using torches to damage exposed empty pipeline valves. They said they started deliberately vandalizing the pipeline in southeast Iowa's Manhasset County, delaying completion for weeks.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they held a press conference openly telling this is how we did it.
And then started taking the signs off of the or the letters off the signs behind them. No
Yeah,
wonder they got her.
on camera.
See, this is the type of time where I say, yeah, these people need to be locked up forever. They admit to blowtorching your pipeline, which delays construction for weeks, setting fire to heavy equipment. You know, we're probably talking hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment that's probably destroyed by these women.
They caused damage up and down the pipeline throughout Iowa and parts of South Dakota, moving from valve to valve until running out of supplies.
Amazing.
And they felt justified the entire time.
Yeah, you can tell they feel like they did nothing wrong.
Like, here's a quote from Montoya, quote, "Our conclusion is that the system is broken, and it is up to us as individuals to take peaceful action and remedy it, and this we did out of necessity."
Yeah, peaceful action. Again, this is the type, they think that what they're doing is peaceful.
By damaging things.
By damaging private property, because that's essentially what it is. You're damaging property, setting fire to equipment, blowtorching empty valves, or whatever they called it, delaying construction. You know what's worse? They were each held on only $1,000 bond.
So they got out.
Yeah.
Easily. Insane. But, yeah, these people are out there.
Yeah, and the article is extremely long, and it goes to some other stuff, but we're not going to read the entire thing already.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some current year college craziness, though.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic.
You're fucking a white male!
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy.
Die, cis, scum.
You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us!
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Current year college craziness, the segment of the show that keeps on giving. The segment of the show where we go over the crazy stuff happening in college campuses here and abroad, but predominantly here because we got the craziest of colleges. We got the best of colleges. And we're going to start it off with talking about the outdoors.
Yes, the outdoors. Did you know, Enzo, that the outdoors are now the newest form of white supremacy?
I did not know that.
I'll give you... Here, I want to play a little game with you.
Okay.
Guess what state this person goes to college in? I'll give you a hint. It's a left-wing state.
Washington.
No.
Illinois.
It's a really, really big one.
California.
There you go.
There we go.
So, according to a student at Claremont Colleges in California, which Claremont Colleges is it's a section of like 5 small colleges that are kind of in the same area. System. Yeah, but they're referred to as the quote-unquote Claremont Colleges. There is a student there who wrote an op-ed in the student-run newspaper named Malcolm McCann, claiming that non-white people are excluded from the outdoors because of white supremacy. He says, due to the predominance of whiteness in the outdoors, people of color have been denied access to the outdoors. Yeah. And he argues, he says, the programs that they have on campus, which are like outdoor programs, I mean, our campus has these too. They're just...
Yeah, you can sign up, you can go on trips.
Nature hikes,
like
that sort of stuff.
40, $50 or something.
Yeah.
Pretty good stuff.
He says, although they are the most funded on campus, they are statuated with white supremacy. He says, although he admits the clubs are open for all people, no matter the color of someone's skin, not everyone feels safe to attend. He says, quote, the discomfort is unfortunately caused by existing racial boundaries. He adds, historically, white people in imperialist conquests have appropriated land as their own. North America rightfully belongs to indigenous communities, yet it has been taken away from them by force. Consequently, a false sense of ownership of nature permeates white America. He goes on to say, the image of the outdoorsy individual, quote-unquote, is an exclusive classification that gives white people the authority to venture into the outdoors freely, leaving people of color behind. And here's the thing that I think is probably the most stupid. He has his own solutions to the problem. You ready?
Okay.
Solution number 1. Affirming that nature belongs to all humans, not just white ones. Okay, when has anybody actually, like...
No one's...
He's building up a straw man argument here.
Yeah.
Okay, no one's arguing what he thinks. No one thinks what he thinks. He's like got this idea in his brain and thinks he has a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
Nature's been proclaimed for white people.
That like white people think that they own nature and people of color, quote unquote, don't.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a national park? It's filled with tourists of all diverse backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people actually complain that there's so many like foreigners and Chinese and Indian people going to national parks. That's actually a legitimate complaint. And yet, it belongs to the white people, or the white people think they own it? No. Solution number 2, quote, the image of the outdoor enthusiast should not belong to just white people. Maybe because white people are the ones who tend to be the most outdoorsy, you know, that's the word that you're trying to use. You know, if you want...
Okay, so he's talking the image, like, we're talking,
think park rangers. People that go out there and, like, clean up stuff. Or people that like to go on, like, hikes and camping.
I'm thinking, like, the image, like, you know, they have those outdoor magazines where dudes are, like, hiking, and you might put, like, a picture of a dude on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's complaining that the dude on the cover is a white person.
Yeah.
Because that shows white supremacy. A white person existing obviously means white supremacy, at least to this guy.
You know, maybe if you want more people of color to be on the cover of the magazines, then more people of color should go hiking, more people of color should go camping, more people of color should go on nature trails.
My thing is just like, okay, so he lives in California. California
is some of those beautiful scenery and outdoorsy areas in the entire country.
No, but like California isn't even that white, like comparatively to other states. It's only like a third of the state is white.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know where he's going, where he's seeing, like, these large swaths of, like, white-only nature preserves. Like, I don't... Like, how is he not running into people of color and nature?
I can guarantee you this guy never goes hiking.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
He's too scared, because there might be white people on the trip.
It makes me feel uncomfortable. Solution number 3. White people should, quote, exert caution as to not dominate ownership of the word outdoorsy. What?
How are they asserting ownership of the word outdoor? I mean, there might be a white person that's like, I'm very outdoorsy. I go on these trips with the school to nature places. It's really fun, and I love it. And, like, this dude hears a white person saying that, and it scares him because... they're proclaiming their white supremacy over nature, apparently.
And the thing is, you know, he makes the argument, he was like, the white people stole this land. But yet, that would be referring to, like, stealing land and then, like, using it for stuff like building cities and whatnot.
Yeah.
What he's referring to is, like, people that go, like, hiking and nature trails and camping. You know,
they're not taking anything.
The type of people that enjoy nature and want to preserve it, not the people that, like, you know... I'm going to use a leftist term here, the, like, anti-environmentalists who just want to, like, build factories and pollute everything. You know what I'm referring to, right?
Yeah.
There's, like, 2 types of people. He's complaining that the people that want to protect nature are all white people. That's essentially what he's saying.
Even if they were. Why is that a bad thing? Why is it bad that they just happen to be white and they like the outdoors and they like the environment? Like,
I mean, you know who started the National Park Service? Teddy Roosevelt was white. He's also Republican. I guarantee you, most people who go on, like, nature trails and hikes and camping and mountain climbing and all that sort of stuff, especially in California, are white liberals. Vast majority. Environmentalists, even. Very, very liberal community, that is. Especially in that area of the country. So, if anything, he's also complaining about liberals, of which he definitely is one.
It's just so strange. Like, what is he... He wants nature to be a safe space for POC. He wants to ban the white people from going because it makes him, you know, feel unwelcomed, apparently,
Mm-hmm.
for no stated reason. Just all in his head.
And here's the final solution he has. Outdoor clubs on college campuses should work to increase accessibility and help people learn the skills they will need.
They're open to everyone.
They're already open. Here's the last quote he says, quote, friendship can act as a portal to the wilderness for those who have historically been denied the privilege of comfort. So he's saying that, like, friendship is the solution? Was this My Little Pony or something?
Historically denied comfort. If there has ever been a
denied the privilege of comfort.
Denied the privilege of comfort. If there has ever been a phrase that's more bullshit from someone who hasn't experienced oppression. Okay? The guy has to cite things that have happened decades ago to apply to him, and they have, the same color skin as him. So they're still oppressed because people with the same color skin as them were historically oppressed, and that's why the outdoors is white supremacy. These are the dumbest people. It's insane.
But yeah, so that's all we have for this story. So, next time you go visit a national park and try to enjoy the beauty of nature, just remember you're a white supremacist for doing it. If you're white.
That was a real doozy. Last week we had barely any college craziness. We actually have a lot this week.
We had to cut some this week.
Yeah, we had to cut some. I'll go into the next one.
Go ahead.
So the next story is out of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. There was a protest on the 1-year anniversary of Trump winning the presidency, and there is a teacher's assistant, Tariq Khan, who is giving a little speech out at the demonstration, and some conservative students came out to the protest, which, I do the same thing when I see this stuff. It's very interesting to watch, because they're insane people, and they started, bantsing him. There's a video of this you can actually watch, and let me go. So they go to the protest and they start kind of bantsing him, and at one point a person says don't you have kids, don't you have better things to do? And the dude gets really offended. He's like, are you threatening my kids? Are you threatening my kids? Say it to my face. Be a man. Oh, you're afraid now? So this guy, he goes up and he throws a punch at one of the students. He steals one of their cell phones and eventually smashes that cell phone on the sidewalk. This guy, Tariq Khan, is a PhD candidate at the university who's taught courses such as Constructing Race in America and U.S. Gender History since 1877. He's also active with anarchist and communist organizations, including Black Rose Anarchist Federation and Antifa, in addition to working with the undergraduate socialist students. So definitely a very, very reasonable guy.
Definitely the type of person I want teaching my students.
But the guy just goes off. And, the quote was from an individual named Joel Valdez, so not a white supremacist.
No, definitely not.
Don't you have anything better to do? Don't you have kids? And the dude's triggered, and he gets into the guy's face and accusing him of threatening his kids. And he grabs the dude's cell phone. He starts recording, too, on his side, which is pretty funny. You see this when the leftists go crazy. It's always like, oh, I gotta get evidence of you. You're threatening me or whatnot. And the dude's, calm. He's just like, how did I threaten you? What did I say? What did I do? And the dude grabs his iPhone, which is an iPhone S Plus, which is, valued.
7 Plus.
Yeah, 7 Plus, which is hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Oh, I have an iPhone 7 Plus.
Yeah. And he's carrying it around, and they start calling for, call the police, you just stole my iPhone. And the dude takes that iPhone, and he throws it against the sidewalk, and he smashes the thing. And they got photos of the smashed phone. And he says the LCD is experiencing discoloration, so both the top and bottom layers of the screen are severely damaged.
Yeah, so it not just cracked the screen, it broke the LCD panels inside it too.
Yeah, so it threw this really hard. And Khan was arrested and is set to appear in court for criminal charges.
Good.
And as of recent, the university has yet to respond to the incident.
They got a video linked in it too, but we're not going to watch the video in here. So.
I watched the video before we did the show, though.
I heard you watching it.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Very unhinged. And these are the enlightened, educated
these are
people.
The intellectuals.
The intellectuals that, teach your kids. Very, very reasonable people.
And it's not just the the professors, it's the students too, and that's what we got for the next story.
Not just your teaching assistant will steal things from you. It is also the students on these campuses. And we're going back to a story that I think most people listening to the show will remember. We're going back to the University of California, Riverside for this next story, where an Edith Marcius, she stole a Make America Great Again hat from a student. There's
video was
of
viral.
this. Yeah, very viral. She takes this student's hat and she goes to, I think it was student housing or something.
It was whatever, like some student-run office building.
Yeah, and it's like, you need to get this kid in trouble. He's wearing this hat that promotes genocide. And the dude's just saying, like, she took my hat.
This hat is genocide, homeboy.
Yeah. And turns out the Riverside County District Attorney is filing charges against her with one misdemeanor count of grand theft for the incident that happened on September 27th.
Good.
And she is facing potentially up to a year in jail for stealing this dude's hat.
I hope she does. Let's say the next court date is slated for March, so...
She's got a while.
Yeah, and I doubt she's, it's just a misdemeanor, it's not a felony, so she's not, like, arrested. She's just charged with and has to show up in court. But yeah, so I'm actually very glad because the student, Matthew Vital, I believe is his name.
Yeah.
He was the one who was recording it the entire time. He actually decided to press charges against her, so, what he did is what everybody needs to do in this situation. Press charges, use the full extent of the law against these people. Otherwise, they're going to continue to do it, and you need to make sure that that does not happen.
Just going over some of the quote choice, or the choice quotes from the original video. Quote, this is Marcius. Quote, UCR is letting people wear this shit on campus? Make America great again? Really? There were lynchings and genocide and mass deportations. I fucking hate this country, and I'm not leaving. We need to get rid of all of you. Fuck your freedom of speech, boy. Your freedom of speech is literally killing a lot of people out there. Your hats like these that promote laws and legislation that literally kill and murder people of color.
If anything is the poster child for, like, deranged left-wing people of students on campus, it's definitely her at this point, I think.
And she felt so justified.
Yeah.
So justified. They always do. Just like this Tariq Khan guy. He felt so justified to steal this dude's phone. I wish I could take away this sense of justification from them. But the stuff that they learn in college, their academic bullshit, is what makes them feel so justified. And it's what, in the end, justifies them committing crimes. And guess what? They're not justified.
Nope.
They're not. So, yeah, it'd be cool if she went to jail for a year. Maybe she'd think about it.
Yep, I hope so.
Let's move on to the next story. The next story is out of Dartmouth College, and they're hosting an event called What's Up with White People? So the person hosting it is a Temple University sociologist, Matt Ray. And he is a self-proclaimed expert on whiteness. And he is holding a forum at Dartmouth College on February 2nd to figure out what's up with white people. The talk is open to the public as Ray provides a field guide to learn about the different types of white people and how you can learn to spot them in their natural habitats. Ray says the event will offer a sociological and cultural analysis of what produces and sustains certain white social types, such as President Trump, Rachel Dolezal, Richard Spencer, and left-wing social justice warriors. Ray's presentation is set to conclude with observations about the implications of white self-differentiation from social issues like immigration, mass incarceration, and the growing epidemic of self-destruction among whites.
Well, that last one I can understand, the growing epidemic of self-destruction among whites. I mean, we talked about the the opioid epidemic on the show. We did an entire midweek episode talking about it. You know, people forget just how bad that situation is. There is a problem with
I don't think
self-destruction.
he's talking about that.
I extremely doubt he's talking about that. But if that's what he was talking about, I'd actually tend to agree with him.
That'd be interesting.
Otherwise,
yeah.
I know this guy's full of crap.
The college says that his views do not represent the views of the college, but they, are still having it because they want to have open debate, which, freedom of speech, if he reserves the room, he can do whatever he wants. But, could you just imagine if, we we had this event for any other people?
Yeah,
what's up with black
people?
What's up with Asians?
What's up with
Latinx?
Hispanics?
The protests at that event would be amazing.
Yeah, and if you started wearing a MAGA hat there, then they'd be like, what is this? Make America Great Again, homeboy?
So, Dartmouth College, they're having a What's Up with White People event. Very progressive.
Fun.
Very progressive. That's all I'll say. So, the next story is another thing that's really blown up pretty virally this week, and is actually not here in the United States. It happened out in Ontario, Canada, at Wilfrid Lawler University. There's a lady who is named Lindsay Shepherd, who was being I guess you could say investigated or questioned in front of
I've listened to the audio.
Yeah,
it's
too.
almost like she, as a teacher,
she's being reprimanded.
Yeah,
she's a TA, a teaching assistant, and she's being attacked for showing a TV program where Jordan Peterson says in that thing that he is not going to use gender neutral pronouns. Apparently it was part of they're having a discussion over language and the use of they pronouns in the singular, which is a thing they do now in colleges. They teach anti intellectual things now. It's kind of crazy. But they were really mad that they showed a video where someone even expressed those viewpoints. And in the recording, they even go on to claim that she violated Ontario human rights code or Canadian human rights code by showing it, which so they showed the snippet of this thing from TV Ontario's show The Agenda, which featured Jordan Peterson and other people that opposed his view of thinking. So I'm pretty sure it's not a human rights crime to show a segment from a TV show that was on Ontario television.
Yeah.
But, they make her feel as though she's guilty of committing such a crime, and she ends up crying in the video. It's really,
she
hard
thinks she's about to lose her job.
Yeah, she does.
They're, coming all at her.
And, they accused her of, committing gendered violence by showing a video which, quote, invalidates the gender identity and pronouns of transgender people. It's the most insane thing. Y'all can look it up. Lindsay Shepherd. It'll be the first thing that comes up. They have the entire clip. But it's just insane how pervasive, this mindset that they have against her is, to where, anything that even, quote-unquote, threatens transgender people in any way needs to be attacked. And not just attacked, but demolished. They just wipe through this lady. And, they take issue with her just being neutral. She just presented it, and she didn't put any sort of political slant. In the, the little recording, they say, that's actually the problem. Mm-hmm. Being neutral in the face of people like Jordan Peterson is like being neutral in the face of the Nazis.
When all she's trying to do is spark intellectual debate among her students.
Yeah.
Which, used to be what universities would do. Present both sides of an argument, or present a, controversial standpoint, and just be like, hey, what do y'all think of this? do it with what yourselves. But no, the fact that she did take a neutral standpoint, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, because you didn't say that this guy was a homophobic bigot, by the way, because you didn't say that, you're out of a job, Missy. Or essentially is what they were trying to do.
And it's good that she recorded this and revealed this, because otherwise, nothing was going to come of this other than maybe like her disciplinary actions against her.
Right.
But because that she released this audio and it's really blown up, the president and the vice chancellor of the university have both had to come out with apologies, and the lead individual in the little tribunal or whatever they're having against her had to issue an apology. But this is how stifling, the environment for these TAs are. They can't even present something without bias. They have to have a leftist progressive slant to it. Otherwise, you are, taking the side of pretty much Nazis is the way they're putting it out there. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that.
Yeah, did you see what Lindsay Shepherd posted on Twitter after this?
You want to read it for us?
Yeah, I'll read it. She says, quote, "Moral of the story, a university must be repeatedly publicly shamed internationally in order to apologize," and then in parentheses it says, "Oh, but keep the task force investigation. Even then, ambiguous about free speech. Also, make sure to secretly record all meetings or they won't take you seriously."
Yeah.
That last part is extremely important. Always, always record everything you have.
If you have to deal with these kind of people, yeah.
And the thing is, before you do that, make sure you know the laws of your state or your country regarding one-party or two-party consent for, like, recordings and whatnot. I know in Texas, for both video, for audio, at least in Texas, requires only one-party consent. And I think if you're in public, video, I believe, is one-party as well. Other states, it has to be two-party. You have to get permission from both sides. But if you're in Texas, at least, if you got to go to something like this,
you can just record it
use
the
the
whole
voice
time.
recorder in your phone, stick it in your pocket, it'll record it. Or put it on the table or something. Like, record everything. That's the only way that you're going to actually win in these situations. And the fact that they had to publicly apologize in that she's come out there, both people had to publicly apologize, the university itself too. That would not have happened had she not recorded this. That's what it really does come down to, is the moral of the story is, ignoring the issue of free speech or whatever, gendered pronouns. The recording aspect alone. Record everything, and if something bad happens, post that everywhere you can. Get all your friends to share it, and make that shit go viral. Make these people forced to apologize. Because this lady, Lindsay Shepherd, if I was a person running a school, I would hire her immediately.
Yeah. And, she's not a right-winger.
No.
She says in the thing, she doesn't even agree with Jordan Peterson. She was just showing the video. But that's too much. That's a violation of Canadian Human Rights Code. It's bullshit.
Yep.
Let's close out with this story that we have here.
This
that's
actually
kind of a doozy.
Yeah, this one came out just a couple hours before we started recording. So there's a nurse from the Indiana University Health system. So technically still falls under current college craziness.
Yeah. They're on campus, they're on health
campus,
center or whatever.
Health center that's available to the public or whatnot. A nurse by the name of Taisha Baker allegedly posted a tweet on Friday, and there's screenshots of her tweet and everything. So it's all legit.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Saying that, quote, I'll actually just go ahead and read it here. So she says, quote, "Every white woman raises a detriment to society when they raise a son. Someone with the highest propensity to be a terrorist, rapist, racist, killer, and domestic violence all-star. Historically, every son you had should be sacrificed to the wolves, bitch."
Jesus Christ.
I mean, we can deconstruct every single thing she said regarding crime statistics if they really, really want to go into that, but we don't.
They don't want to go into it, and we could really deconstruct this thing down very thoroughly, but I don't even think we need to, because these are just mass generalizations about children.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're white, they need to be sacrificed to the wolves,
bitch. According to public records, they said she was issued a nursing license on October 30th. So if that's true, she's only been a nurse for like a month.
And she lives in Iowa?
Indiana.
Indiana. So that's a very white state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's majority, off the top of my head, it's at least 80%.
It's very conservative, too.
So pretty much everyone she interacts with is white for the most part. And she thinks this about them. Mm-hmm. And she probably has to deal with people's children. I mean, if she's working in a college environment, she's dealing with someone's kids.
And
this is what she thinks of them. As she's supposedly, she took the Hippocratic oath to serve, the people. But she wants them sacrificed to the wolves because they're who they are.
In previously deleted tweets, it said that she claimed to work in pediatrics. So,
Oosh.
Yeah, she's around children. The employee actually, or not the employee, the university health system actually did release a statement saying, quote, IU Health is aware of several troubling posts on social media which appear to come from a recently hired health employee, blah, blah, blah. Our HR department continues to investigate the situation and the authenticity of the post. During the investigation, the employee will have no access to patient care. So they're at least doing the right thing and keeping this woman away from everybody else. Mrs. Taisha Baker out there.
Oosh. Crazy stuff.
So, message to any white women listening to this. Yo son is going to be sacrificed to the wolves, bitch. That's what they think of you. That is what they think of you.
Let's go to a short break, and we'll come back. We'll do international news. We'll sweep this up, and we'll get out of here. But with that said, we'll see you on the other side of the break. Okay, welcome back from the break. We're going to get into some international news. We're going to start off with what's going on in the Middle East, and you got the first thing happening out there.
First thing, very sad thing. There was a mosque attack earlier this week, whereas the death toll has now climbed to over 300 people. What happened was there was a mosque in Egypt's northern Sinai region where people were just praying and worshiping at the mosque, and apparently there was some type of a terrorist organization. They haven't released exactly which one it was. But they said that what they did was they set off a couple of bombs in the mosque, and then as people were running out, other people started shooting at them, which left 305 dead, including 27 children and 128 people that were injured. They said that hours after the massacre, the military initiated airstrikes on the terrorist locations around Bir al-Abed, which is about 25 miles north of northern Sinai's main city of Al-Arish, where the weapons and ammunition reportedly were stocked. They said several vehicles that were used in the attack have been located and have been bombed by the military so far. President Trump actually reached out to the president of Egypt, offering condolences and whatnot, and he was the first world leader to do so. But this is the worst terrorist attack that's happened in Egypt in a very long time, maybe even ever. And these people are just, say what you want about things people say about Muslims, but for the most part, these people were just at church worshiping, and they got killed by other Muslims.
Yeah. Just
for being who they were. 305 people didn't deserve to die for just going to church on, like, Saturday or Friday or whatever day it was. Or going to mosque on Friday or whatever it was.
Really, really crazy stuff.
But
casualty numbers just so high.
Yeah, massive. But Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has vowed has vowed to retaliate with brute force. So we already said they did some airstrikes, but Egypt might be starting to go after terrorist cells as well. And speaking of another Middle Eastern country that's doing some stuff, Israel said that they're going to deport 40,000 illegal African migrants that are currently residing in their country, released in a statement by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He says that, quote, the infiltrators will have the option to be imprisoned or leave the country. They said that as of a June 30th number, it showed just over 38,000 African migrants living in the country, including 27,000 from Eritrea and about 8,000 from the Sudan. And a lot of them live around Tel Aviv and other areas there in, northern Israel. So even Israel is deporting 40,000 Africans.
They have much stricter immigration laws in Israel than we have here in the United States.
And the thing is, like, if you're not of Jewish descent, in order to become a citizen of Israel is damn near impossible.
Yeah, you pretty much
I extremely doubt these 40,000 Africans living there were Jewish.
Yeah.
So, like, alone, that alone, they shouldn't have been let into that country. But, if Israel can deport 40,000 African migrants, we need to be deporting people too. And they did it one swell troop, saying, hey, all 40,000, you're gone once we get you out of here. That's, and it was a simple, easy statement to make. That's what it needs to be here. For similar situations, very similar to that. Say, hey, all these people, X number, boom, you're gone, goodbye. That's all you got to do. So they said that they actually have a facility in the desert called Halat, which can host about 1,200 migrants that are allowed to leave and go to work and then come back at the end of the day. That one, as of December 16th, is going to be closing. So all the migrants living there, they also got to go back as well if they don't have permanent residence. And they said that a public security ministry spokesman said an extension to that deadline would be set if necessary. Ahead of the vote, Public Security Minister Gilead Erdan said that Halat had become, quote, a hotel for infiltrators at the taxpayers' expense that does not encourage their exit and costs 240 million shekels, which is about $68 million US a year. And that's just for 1,200 migrants living in essentially like makeshift tent type things out in the middle of the desert. So, again, I applaud Israel because they're actually deporting people that need to be deported. We need to step up our game and deport the people that need to be deported as well.
Yeah. Let's move on to the last story from the Middle East. I have it. And this is in regards to current agreements with Turkey and the United States. The U.S. and Turkey have discussed pending adjustments to military support for Washington's partners on the ground in Syria and have agreed to join forces against all forms of terrorism, including the Kurdish PKK and Fethullah Gulen's movement. So this is significant because it shows a big change in who we're going after in Syria. I mean, the war against ISIS is over.
Yeah.
It's over as of this week. As of last week. This week, Assad and Putin, they had a photo where they hugged in celebration because they defeated ISIS. Good stuff. But looks like we're still going to be involved out there. With this recommitment, previously we were sending arms to the YPG, the Kurdish militia for the Rojavans out there in northern Syria, which have been fighting the Turks as well. Because, you can listen to our 2017 Global Conflicts Report. We go very in-depth on this. Kurds and Turks, they don't like each other too much at all. So it looks like now, instead of, helping, the Kurds, we're going after the Kurds, which is not stuff I want to be happening.
Definitely not.
Turkey is a very bad ally. Very not good. So, I don't like what we're doing with this stuff. Our foreign policy is probably like the weakest point of Donald Trump's presidency. And his foreign policy is still a lot better than what it used to be.
Yeah, that's.
But I don't like this.
No, I'm definitely against this move. I think the last people that we need to be fighting over there, if we're going to fight anyone, the last people we need to be fighting are the Kurds at this point.
Yeah, and we don't need to be involved in Syria anymore. But it seems like we're still committed to being out there. So what can we do?
I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes from there.
Let's move on to some European news. I get the first one here. child migrants to have priority in the National Health Service. A high court judge rules young migrants who arrive unaccompanied must be put ahead at the queue. Justice Peter Jackson said that child migrants should also get school placement priority.
This is in the UK, right?
This is in the United Kingdom, yes.
Right, so children who arrive unaccompanied from other countries, essentially illegally, get priority over your natural citizens that live there.
Yeah, not only just, receiving services from the taxpayers, but they need to be prioritized. They need to be at the head of the queue for health issues or education issues because I don't know, but this is what he ruled this week, so this is what they're doing out there.
God, put him at the back of the queue is what I gotta say if you're gonna put him on the queue at all.
But yeah, I put that there just to trigger you on the United Kingdom, just a little bit, because I'm gonna go even a little further on the triggering as far as the United Kingdom goes.
Oh, go ahead, please, trigger me, dude.
There's a report this week that came out. It's called Islamophobia, Still a Challenge for All of Us. It's from a race relations think tank, the Rumimed Trust. It alleges that anti-Muslim racism is responsible for all inequalities between Muslims and other groups in Britain across a range of outcomes from health, housing, and environment to education, employment, and criminal justice. This is lamenting the Muslims are subject to demonization and racial stereotyping in Britain. One of the report's 10 main recommendations is that the press and media be overhauled to ensure that the news coverage is produced so as to not fuel negative perceptions of minorities, ethnic, or religious groups. A press regulator should investigate the prevalence of Islamophobia, racism, and hatred espoused in the media, which should not only look at the accuracy of coverage, but also examine whether individual stories have wider negative effects on whole ethnic groups and on wider social attitudes, which, for layman's term, means you can't report on any sort of, misdoing of a Muslim because it's going to make them all look bad. And, the report goes on to say that schools in Britain need to teach that they are an immigrant nation and that there are no such thing as indigenous people to Britain as a means to fight Islamophobia.
Oh my God.
They're linking to a government-funded educational resource called Our Migration Story as well, and they say that they want to make this a historical module that needs to be taught to all students, which this was developed by an open Marxist, and it teaches that Africans were in Britain before the English.
Oh, really?
Yeah, did you not know that Africans
I learned
and
something
not
today.
English people are native to England?
Did they say anything about the Druids and all them people? What about them?
I don't think they went very detailed on the stuff that they want to teach the children out there.
Of course they didn't.
But Our Migration Story states that the UK is a nation of constant migrations with no indigenous population, whose wealth and power came only as the result of the exploitation of the world's resources and its people. British imperialism is to blame for the existence of racism today, according to the website, which highlights hundreds of stories of intolerance, racism, and oppression in the UK's history, as was created to counter the resurgence of increasingly narrow nationalistic expressions of national identity. So, a little report came out. Pretty much condemning everything about the United Kingdom.
To be taught to United Kingdom children.
That doesn't, serve in the interests of Muslims, crazy, crazy stuff.
Well, speaking about things that have to do with Muslims, we got a story out of Sweden here where armed police are now going to start escorting joggers in Swedish cities for protection. This would, in the Swedish city of Oskarshamn, will now have the option, the residents that is, to be accompanied by armed police officers while they're out jogging. They said the program was designed to ease the insecurities of those who wish to go jogging after dark. The guy named Carlson who came up with the idea for the program said police would form jogging groups and all those who were interested in joining the officers were welcome. They said, quote, "We will adjust the pace entirely to those who come," he said, noting that the officers would jog as well as walk with residents who wanted to join. And he said that he had heard about many of the residents feeling insecure in the city, and he said, quote, "It does not happen so much here, but people are influenced by events around the world and feel unsafe when it's dark." Here's the thing. A police inspector's comments mirror a report from 2016 which stated that close to half of women in Sweden felt, quote, "very unsafe at night alone in Swedish cities." According to the report conducted by the newspaper Aftonbladet, a further 43% felt uncomfortable in Swedish cities even in the daytime. It said the issue is particularly bad in troubled, heavily migrant-populated suburbs, which are labeled often as no-go zones. A survey conducted by the Swedish National Council for Crime Prevention claimed that around half of the residents of problem areas were too afraid to leave their homes in the evenings. So now you can't even go jogging at night, feeling uncomfortable. The police are even saying, "Don't worry, we will jog with you." Which, I mean, I guess if you want to have a friend with you, if you want to have some people around you, that's great. But
they shouldn't have to do this.
They shouldn't have to do this is absolutely right.
And this wasn't how it was before the big mass migration that they
Sweden was one of the safest societies. It was like, the highest pedestal type country that people would put out there is like, especially socialists would be like, this is how we need to run things. It's going to be a third world country in the next decade.
Yeah.
All because of the fact that they become, they let this happen to their country.
Because they forcefully transformed their nation by, massive third world immigration.
There is no future for Sweden. And I hate to say that, but it is absolutely true. Sweden has no future. And they've sold their country. They haven't even sold their country away. They have given their country away
to people that hate them.
Exactly. And so I don't want to even talk about Sweden anymore. I hate it so much, the situation's going on out there. So let's just move on to the next story that I have here. So this one, switching to Germany, I guess you could say this is maybe good news, maybe bad news. But Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, said she would prefer new elections over a minority government. The reason why she said that is her party, which, what was her party, like the Christian Democrats or something like that?
Yeah, it's the Christian Democrats.
Her party and the other, like, left-wing party that was there tried to form a coalition in government, which would give her the majority power in the country.
So then they could rule.
Those talks have completely broken down. So it's literally party versus party. Well, like the right-wing parties, those parties are trying to form a coalition. But the left-wing parties could not form a coalition. So the majority of power in the, like, I guess you could say the German legislature, I forget what's the exact term for it. Either way.
I think they have a parliament, but it's whatever.
Parliament, chancellery, whatever.
Wherever they do their legislation.
The power in there, in terms of consolidated, is actually on the right now. And to the point where she can't, like, she's not going to be able to do anything. Because she doesn't have the coalition behind her to support what she's doing. She still says she wants to run as a candidate in the next election, claiming that her block of supporters is more united than ever, which is complete bullshit. But the fact that those people walked away from those talks, there's no reason for her to even be there. She's going to be a completely ineffective chancellor.
Can't do anything
for the next X amount of time until the next fucking election comes around. So, as much as people harp on the two-party system, at least we don't have to form coalitions and rule ourselves ineffective, which, we kind of do rule ourselves ineffective either way. But, that's what people were saying was, what was it? I think the right-wing, whatever the right-wing party was, got
Alternative
like second
for Deutschland?
Yeah. Didn't they get second place or third place?
They got third place overall, but I know in, like, Eastern Germany, they came in second.
Yeah. So anyways, third place overall in their parliament. Well, the top two, which are still like left-leaning, those aren't together anymore.
Yeah.
So essentially you have like three major parties plus all the smaller ones all fighting against each other, none of which are agreeing with each other. Although the right-wing parties are kind of forming together saying, yeah, we can use this as an opportunity. So,
so they're likely going to need to do new elections.
They are, and that's what it comes down to. And if it is new elections, I extremely doubt that Merkel is going to get more support than she did the first time.
Yeah.
In fact, AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, will probably actually gain
might end up
popularity.
doing better.
They might even come in second. They didn't come in second they didn't come in third by that much of a margin. It's possible.
Yeah. So, interesting stuff out there. The situation in Germany isn't good, but, maybe things can improve a little bit. Who knows? Let's go to the last story out of Europe, and this is in regards to Austria. Recently, Austria's finance minister, Hans-Jörg Schelling, admitted that refugees or migrants are costing the nation around 1.8 billion euro on a yearly basis. That's almost the same budget than that of the country's national army.
Jesus.
So, looking at how the breakdown on this goes, since 2015, Austria has taken in about 150,000 migrants. Each one receives around 500 to 900 euro each month for basic care from the Austrian government, which that's not including housing or education or healthcare, which they also have to pay for. But looking in Vienna in particular, the Austrian media reports that a migrant in Vienna, the capital of Austria, receives 914 million euro a month.
No, just 914 a month per person.
Yeah. And, the crazy part is, a pensioner, an Austrian farmer pensioner, someone who's served his nation his entire life, feeding them, paid into the system his entire life, and now he gets to receive a pension from the state. For all of that work, he receives only 620 euro a month in pension.
It's 300 less.
So yeah, the Viennese migrant who has done nothing for Austria receives more in pension than the farmer, or receives more in payment than a pensioner.
Got to retake Austria too.
Austria, it's bad there too. I mean, they're turning things around there, but even the presence of only 150,000 migrants in a small country like that, it makes a difference. And the budget that we just mentioned, it doesn't take in account for additional costs for managing law and order in relation to migrant crime, which we know is higher than the average native, or extra security threats from terrorism that is happening because of all these Islamic migrants that came in. So not good stuff out there. Really, really messed up. Let's move on now to Asia.
So the first story that we have out of Asia is the U.S. has finally designated North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. Trump signed that into law earlier, or not really into law, but he signed that order earlier this week. North Korea joins Iran, Sudan, and Syria as a list of state sponsors of terror. They also said, according to the Treasury Department, they will announce additional sanctions against North Korea last Tuesday, which is the ones that we did announce. And the reason they have the state sponsor of terrorism label, a lot of it has to do with the way that they just are as a country. But they said they used as an example when Kim Jong-un's estranged half-brother was killed in a Malaysian airport, which essentially was an assassination. They labeled that as terrorism. And so that kind of springboarded them to drop this big old label on them. Yeah, what do you think about that, Enzo?
What do I think of that?
What do you think about North Korea being designated as a state sponsor of terrorism?
I don't particularly know the extent to which they are sponsoring terrorism personally, but I don't think they have goodwill towards us, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're putting money against us. So, I'm fine with the actions that we take there on it.
Yeah, they said the U.S. has been trying to declare them a state sponsor of terror since 2008. So this isn't like Trump just making it up on his own. This is something that's been tried since the Bush administration to do. Trump even said himself, he said it should have happened a long time ago during the cabinet meeting when he signed it into law. So, yeah, North Korea, state sponsor of terror. There you go.
As of now. Let's go into the other story we have for Asia, and this is a story out of the Philippines. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has canceled all future peace talks with communist rebels waging one of Asia's longest insurgencies. In a speech on Tuesday night, Duterte criticized the insurgents over deadly attacks against soldiers and police while threatening to categorize them as a terrorist group. Quote, "I have decided to cut all talks with the NPA," referring to the New People's Army, a communist group with around 3,800 members. The Communist Party of the Philippines has also been waging insurgency since 1968 against the Filipino government. The peace talks to end the conflict, which has claimed around 30,000 lives, have been conducted on and off for the last 3 decades. Here's a quote from Duterte. "You tell the guys there in the Netherlands has been trying to host peace talks on this, I am no longer available for any official talk. Let's just go to war." So, Duterte is not negotiating with communist rebels in his nation, and he's gonna fight it out.
I love Duterte so much. I really do.
He's really handling it the right way. You need to handle communists.
Oh, he's going to do something Trump did. He says he's going to issue a proclamation declaring the rebels a terrorist organization and order the arrest of more than a dozen rebel leaders that he had freed last year. So, dude, I love Duterte so much.
Yeah, he's pretty good stuff. He doesn't take any bullshit. And
nope.
He's not going to take any communist bullshit.
Especially
so
no communist bullshit. So, good on Duterte. I'm glad about that guy.
Let's move on to North America. The first thing that I wanted to cover is out of Canada. Canada is ditching a policy that rejects immigrants because they're sick or disabled and could be a drag on their health system. Immigration Minister Ahmed Hussein says. Calling it an important and sensitive issue, Hussein says the government will look at all options to revamp the 40-year-old policy which bars the entry to applicants, which could be costly to public health or social service systems. Quote, "From a principled perspective, the current excessive demand provision policy simply does not align with our country's values of inclusion of persons with disabilities in Canadian society." The policy is currently estimated to save around $135 million for denying, immigrants with disabilities. But, you can't truly anticipate what that would cost, if they reverse this policy. But they are reversing this policy, so they're just going to pay for, any sick person that wants to come there. They're just going to do it.
Amazing. And, that's on top of the fact that Canada says they're going to admit 1 million refugees over the next 3 years. Or, 1 million immigrants over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And now, if you're sick or have a disabled
if you would be any sort of drain on the health system, that's fine. The taxpayers will pay for that for you. It doesn't matter. We're inclusive in Canada, which means anyone can come in and be a drain to us. That's fine. Apparently that's what, Immigration Minister Ahmed Hussein thinks is fine.
Yeah, remember, Canada's immigration minister is named Ahmed Hussein.
He's a Somali immigrant himself.
And he's the immigration minister. Because, of course, he's given priority to his own people.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. But, I guess that's sensible, progressive policy in Canada to do these things.
Fucking Leafs. It's not better south of the border either.
Yeah, let's go south of the border. We have some news on Mexico. There were more murders in October in Mexico than any other month over the last 20 years, at least according to since they've been calculating murder statistics. There were six, or no, where's the number?
I have it right here.
Yes.
They said, with 20,878 murders nationwide in the first 10 months of 2017, this year is on track to overtake 2011 as the most violent since the government began publishing since 1977. They said that Mexico's Interior Ministry on Monday showed there were 2,371 murder investigations opened in the month of October.
So 2,371 open investigation
in
murders
1 month.
in October.
There are an average of 69 murders a day so far this year, putting Mexico on track to overtake the 2011 homicide tally before the end of November. In 2011, there were an average of 63 murders per day. Every day, an average of 69 people, not die, will be murdered in Mexico.
Yeah. And, kind of makes you want a wall between us and them, Kind of makes you want to take, securing our border with them very seriously, because Mexico's a war zone. We talked about this on our 2017 Global Conflicts Report. You look at death tolls of, current conflicts, Mexico comes in fourth. After Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Mexico.
And Somalia's fifth.
Yeah. It's worse in Mexico than Somalia. But hey, let's leave our border open to that. Let's let that come here.
No, they're just going to Canada, dude. They're just going to Canada.
It'd be fine if they went to Canada. Canada has a lot of problems with illegal immigration, as we've talked about many times on the show. Because of how, they signal how virtuous they are. And, they're signaling only even more so now that they'll take any disabled person and they'll pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Here's this last quote I want to hear you hear. Baja California, right under California there, that portion of Mexico.
Peninsula.
Is one of the states that's seen the sharpest rise in murders. There are 409 in the first 10 months of 2017, up 178% from the same period last year.
178%.
So it's not like this is all happening like Texas border. A lot of this is happening out west. So, yeah.
Really bad stuff. And that's why we need to take our security with Mexico seriously, because it's extremely dangerous. Mm-hmm. Let's go on to the last story. This is a continuation of something we talked about last week, but now it's official.
It is absolutely official. The Zimbabwe president, Robert Mugabe, has officially resigned after 37 years in office.
Good stuff.
Very good stuff. I don't really want to talk about all the details of it, but because we already did last week on the show. We were talking about how they were pushing him out of office and stuff. And
yeah.
His party cut ties with him, which pretty much was the last straw he had, because they were trying that whole coup thing, I guess. They said it wasn't a coup.
Trying to say wasn't a coup, but it was.
It was a coup. They were trying to have impeachment hearings against him, but he's been in power since 1980. So the guy is 90 something years old.
Yeah, he's in his 90s,
94 or something like that. So if he didn't resign, he was just going to die soon anyways. But
so if you don't know, Robert Mugabe, he's a pretty terrible dictator. He came into power in the 1980s, shortly after Zimbabwe independence was declared, formerly Rhodesia. He's responsible with his policies for the massive hyperinflation that happened out there. He just spent money like it's nothing, and in the end he caused thousands of his citizens to starve, on top of by force taking white farmers in Rhodesia, by force taking their land. And a lot of those farmers, I was reading about this yesterday, have moved on to Zambia, and they're actually doing very fine there. And, the Zimbabwean government is actually asking them to come back because they need them. Because, Zimbabwe has big problems with starvation, which they didn't have in the past. But, Mugabe didn't really run the country very well at all. So, it's not all good. I was looking at numbers on their stock market out in Zimbabwe. And because ever since he's been, ousted, you could say, their stock market's down something like a quarter or a third of already a terrible economy. So not good stuff, but I guess it's good that Mugabe's gone. We'll have to see.
If anything, it's good that he's gone. He's 93. Until his resignation, was the world's oldest leader. So
yes.
There you go with that.
And with that, that's our show for the week. Hope you enjoyed it. We went over a lot of stuff this week, even though it wasn't a very, noteworthy week in compared to some weeks that we have on the show. We did go over a ton of things.
Yeah.
So, I guess we go over some of the things we want to pitch before we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
We already have our midweek for this upcoming Wednesday recorded. We're going to release it on Wednesday. It's us talking with Simon Roach of the Sadelanders, because we had a lot of good feedback from when we originally had him on. He's a good friend, and it's been a while. So I really enjoyed talking to Simon. Really good stuff.
Yeah, it was great to hear from him again.
Yeah, really good stuff.
He was back in South Africa, which meant that was our first actual internationally done
podcast
interview.
Yeah, we did a podcast internationally. Funny stuff. Just going over the regular stuff. If you want to contact us, you can email us at trumprepublicradio
at gmail.com.
You can donate to help fund the show, which will go to hosting fees. We have our link for that in the description. That's at paypal.me/trumprepublicradio. We're also on Twitter. That's at DJT Radio.
Mm-hmm.
DJT is all capital. Radio is
the links are in
undercase.
the description
That's
for this
in the description.
episode.
Anything else we need to say, Bobby?
No, I think we're pretty much good.
We're on a variety of different platforms. We're on YouTube. We're on PewTube. We have a pretty big presence on there, actually. I don't anything. I can't think of anything else.
Well, we're on iTunes.
Google Play Store. You can get our RSS feed straight off our Podbean. Put that as in your podcast app. I mean, I use Podcast Addict personally.
I use Overcast myself.
But yeah, you can take our RSS feed straight from there and put it in your podcast player, and you can have it automatically update every single time we do a new episode. But with that said, I think we're done for the week.
I think so.
So thank you for listening to another episode of Trump Public Radio, and have a good one.
Goodbye, everybody.